you're not on the screen.
Yep, that's
yep. I forgot to control your position. There you are.
I accidentally yeeted myself across the screen earlier, but I thought I fixed it.
There we go. Everyone is controlled now. We're fine. Hello.
Hello. We were not late, by the way.
Yeah, I was exactly on time, but okay, whatever you say.
Yeah, like.
Oh, I wanted one more.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, guys, I forgot to get a picture that I wanted in here. So let me get that.
Yeah, I was like thinking about pictures, but I was kind of also like, I don't feel like anything I really talk about. Well, okay, that's a lie, actually. There's like one thing.
It's fine, it's fine. I
would do pictures, but...
Alright, let me just...
It's not like...
Let me just put these on here real quick. You don't see nothing, it's fine. Oh my gosh, this one's huge. You don't see anything. Nothing's happening.
That is huge! Holy shit!
Okay, I think that is... No, I needed this one. And I think that's it. No, I had another one. Where did I put it though?
Huge.
Where did I put it? Oh no. Oh, no. Oh, here it is. Okay, here's one. There we go. Let me make sure. Did I get everything?
Wanted.
I did. Okay. I got all the pictures that I wanted on here. Okay. Also, you'll be happy to hear, Lila, that I have finally finished putting together our part 1 and part 2 of Radium Girls and cutting out like all of the stuff that was not at all supposed to be. Like there was a part where like when on our second episode where you had to go to the bathroom right in the middle of your section and my chair was broken. And I was just sitting on my bed talking about how sad I was about my chair being broken. So I cut all of that. I had like 8 hours of footage and it's down to like 5 hours, dude. Between all of the bull crap of us like just yapping about nothing. Yeah. So it's like 5.5 hours-ish around there. And I took out a lot of ums and likes and you knows and basicallys and I left some in there because like yeah, that was yours. Mine was yours is basically. Hi Yakimo, welcome. But yeah, so I will be uploading that tomorrow, I think. That's what I'll upload it.
I definitely think I've basically written in the script somewhere.
Probably. And then also there was a lot of stuff I had to cut because your doc, you wrote it people for the people, like each person had their own section. You had some moments where you had to scroll back up to like Catherine Wolf and it took like 10 seconds to like find where you needed to be in the timeline of Catherine Wolf. So I just cut all of that so that it is a concise podcast, guys. I cut all of the bullshit. So I'm hoping that you will enjoy the VOD if you choose to listen to it on YouTube and or Spotify whenever that comes around. Hopefully by next season we will have that sorted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah. I just wanted to let you guys know and let Lila know that I have officially finished it. I have exported it. It is ready to upload, so I will upload it tomorrow. And then once we do the 27 club, I will do the same with that. And then I will do this one after that. The one that we are recording right now.
Ooh.
Yeah. But I literally have been working on it for a week and a half, just like for a while. I tried to do it at double speed, and then I was like, no, I can't, because then I have to switch all of the stuff that I edit, like clip and like cut and stuff, back to first, like one-time speed. So it was just more time. And by the end of me, after like all of the whole of the podcast edited, when I got towards the end of your section of part 2, it was so slow. It was loading like it, because I had made so many cuts and it was spliced up into so many different sections. I think it was like overloading the editing software. So it was like, it was buffering, and I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll have to show you at some point how many like cuts there are, because there's just so many cuts. But we got it, and it's finished, and I'm happy with how it turned out. So we're good. And all the great information's in there, so.
I love it.
We do go from green to not green because we forgot to be green in the second part. So we are green, and then we're not green. I totally forgot that we were supposed to be green.
Oh no! I forgot to.
Yeah, so for part 1 and for the outro, we're green, and then in the middle, it's just not green sometimes. I'm like, oh well, it's fine. No one will notice.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, that is my update for you guys. Just wanted to let you guys know it's coming. And to let Lila know that it's finished.
We forgot. I can't believe we forgot.
I put it in there, I was like, wait a minute. We aren't green. Oh no, this is gonna be such an abrupt change. Yeah, it was bad. But it's done, and it looks fine, and it sounds great, and it's gonna be awesome. So, whatever.
Woo-woo.
But today's episode's gonna be really nice. I don't know how long this episode's gonna be, honestly, because I wrote like 5 pages, a little over 5 pages, and I have some stuff like linked out that I want to read, like some stories from children. But on my end, I don't think it's going to be super, super long. So this might turn out to be. But I know that Lila has 2 docs because she has a timeline I saw. So I don't know if yours is going to be more thorough or what not. But regardless, it'll be a fun episode. It's a cool topic.
That other timeline is just like more policies that later came
Oh,
into
okay,
fruition,
that's cool.
So it doesn't need to be gone through. I have it like linked somewhere where I was like, don't have to go through, but it's there.
Yeah. I mean, if we need some time, we can talk about it at the end. If we're ready to get off and go to sleep, we cannot. We'll just see how it goes. But
yeah,
per usual, I'm going to be covering the first half of the timeline, and Lila will be covering the second half of the timeline.
It's an actual timeline, guys. I have an actual.
Let's go. This time mine is a little wonky. My timeline is really solid for the first bits of like the Industrial Revolution, the first like all of that stuff. And then we get into the orphan train, and it's more about just how it started, and then like how they went about doing the orphan train procedure and all that. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. And I got pictures. And you can get pictures if you want. If you don't want, you don't need them. Because I can always just put up the orphan train ones that I have. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I kind of feel like I didn't really... I figured that, like, the pictures were just going to be...
I forgot a picture.
The train and the kids.
Oh my gosh. I forgot a picture, guys. I gotta get a picture of the guy that created CAS, Charles Loring Brace.
Oh.
Let me get that.
Yeah, that would...
Yeah, let's get Charles here. Okay. I don't want to know if I'll go on this tangent, but he was a pretty cool guy. I might go on the tangent later. We'll see.
I feel that.
All right, let me get him
I
up
feel
there
that.
before I forget, and then we can decide if we want to start or not. Did you write an intro? Did I write an intro? Okay, I did.
You wrote
Okay.
the intro.
I wrote the intro. Good. I didn't finish the outro though, so we'll need to figure that out.
That was funny.
Okay, let me put Charles down here. All right, I'll have to flip around. So this is like way down here. Boom. Boom. Ba-da-doo. And there. And we have... This goes...
Oh yeah, what was
here.
your Spotify age?
Guess. What do you think it was?
I don't know.
Just make a wild guess. Because no one is going to get it right. No one is going to get it right. It's crazy.
43.
93.
What?
93.
What the fuck? That's older than what Anakin's was.
Mine was 93. Stella. Hello.
Jesus. Stop.
Yeah, no.
Zero's
For
a
those of you
grandma.
that just came in, my Spotify recap age was 93.
That's fucking crazy.
I don't know what to tell you,
93.
man. I listen to a lot of like 50s music, especially when I'm driving in the car with like my grandma or my grandpa. And then I listen to a lot of oldies. And I also was listening to a lot of like old school rock. So I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm 93. I don't know. But my boyfriend got like 25 or 24 or something. And then I
I
told
got
him mine.
28.
And I was 93. And I was like, what?
Jesus.
How? I was so surprised. I genuinely, I can't. I just can't.
That is hilarious.
And it's so interesting because my biggest ones, like my biggest listeners was like K-pop Demon Hunters, Cat's Eye, a bunch of like K-pop groups. And then because I listened to a lot of old school rock and like 50s music, all of a sudden I'm 93. How does that make sense? Also, I love you too, Stella.
Oh my gosh.
Hello, Crumples.
Love you, Stella.
Hello, Arctic. Yeah, I am Grandma Sero Akamome, unfortunately. Old.
That is so funny.
Yeah, I totally forgot to tell you that because I thought about it too. I was like, oh, I wonder what Lila's age is. Not 93, apparently.
Dude, I got 28.
That's just accurate, girl.
I'm pretty sure I can't remember exactly what Anakin got, but I'm pretty sure his was in the 60s.
Oh man. Yeah, no. Mine was 93.
90s. I can't fucking believe it.
Yeah.
That's fucking hilarious.
That's crazy.
Oh my god.
I think it was a prank, man. I don't think it's real. I think they're just being mean. Hi, Rogue. Welcome. I'm old. That's the moral of the story. Oh, you know what? I really was interested in this because I was like thinking back to my familial history. The orphan train. I'm back on the orphan train, guys. We're done with our Spotify tangent. And I don't think that my great-grandfather has anything in relation to this, but because he was already in the Midwest, I believe, when he was born. I think it was the Midwest. I don't remember exactly. But he was a kid that was orphaned and who, not technically orphaned, I think he still had a dad, but his mom died. And he was like sent to live with someone else. So he took like another name and like his brothers all had different names. And I was wondering if like, because it would have been around that time, like the later years of that time, that he would have been a kid. So I was wondering if he would have interacted with any of the orphans, because he was also an orphan, not from New York, but he was an orphan in the same states that they would have been taken to during the time. But yeah, that's that was something I was thinking about. Obviously, I'll never be able to know because that was so long ago, and like the documentation isn't super well kept. So, but yeah, just a thought.
I'll be getting into how much they've actually found since then.
Yeah, I do know that you can email like this organization to like get more information, but it's not easily accessible. It's not like you can go look for it yourself. You have to like email them a name and like what state you think you would have been in and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I talk about that organization later.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's just my little tangent before we start, because one, I didn't want to forget, and two, I thought it was kind of interesting that maybe he would have interacted with some of these kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's my story.
I love that.
Okay, I'm not going to tell you guys his whole name, but his first name was Oral. That's my great-grandfather's name, Oral.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That's his name, Oral.
Speaking of great-grandparents, this is like a slight tangent. I made my great-grandmother's cream cheese cookies for the first time.
Oh, that's fun.
And
did they turn out good?
Yeah, didn't realize there were 2 different frosting recipes, and I was like,
oh,
has there always been that? Because I don't remember a second frosting for these. But okay.
Lila's out here making family like passed down recipes. I'm making boxed chocolate chip bars. Chocolate chip cookie bars. I literally made them before stream.
I love that. No, I did a lot of baking yesterday. The kitchen is still kind of a mess.
See, what I did is I put my dishes in the dishwasher right after I used them. I mean, I rinsed them, obviously. But the dishwasher was, like, getting loaded for dirty and was, like, right at the point where you could load it. And I was like, all right, rearrange, got my stuff in. And then I had no dishes.
Oh, I was baking for hours. I did have one load going, but I had to be somewhere with the cookies at a certain time.
We're making cookies this weekend. I'll have to see if
4 dozen or
if
so.
if you want any. I'll see if we have any extra. Some of the snowballs and such.
Okay.
Because
I'll be making more cookies again. Yeah, all of my cookies got taken to a school, so.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
Speaking of school, I got to pick up my baby nephew today from school, and it's always so I get so much joy because he's having fun at school, right? And then I walk up because they have a lot of kids that have autism and like other disabilities and learning disabilities and all that stuff. And so they all have their hands held, and because my baby nephew is a runner, he has one person hold his hand the whole way, and so he sees me and he immediately is like TT and starts running over, and I'm like whoa. And he's so happy, and he's like, are we going to Nana's house? And I'm like, yeah, we are, dude, and I got you snacks, because I brought him fruit snacks and juice, and he was so happy, and he was so cute, and on our way back, he, thank you for the pennies. Thank you for the pennies.
Oh.
On the way back, he is so smart, dude. He was like, all right, you got to turn this way. You got to turn this way. He was telling me how to get home. And I was like, you're the smartest little guy. He's only 3, and he's just so smart. I forgot to tell you. The other day when we were babysitting, so last weekend, I was sitting with him. He randomly starts counting in Spanish. And I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? And he's just counting in Spanish. And I'm like, what the heck? Where did that? I had no clue that he even knew how to do that. Because he loves numbers. He's a numbers guy. He loves clocks. He loves calculators. Yeah, he loves numbers. So I'm not surprised, but yeah, no, he randomly knows how to count in Spanish now. All right, that's my last tangent, guys. I swear.
That's so cute, though.
Yeah, no, he's so cute. I mean, his little sister's cute too. She's kind of a monster, but it's fine.
Love that.
Alrighty. Well, I feel like we've had our obligated 20-minute tangent time.
Yeah.
Well, how long was our Enzo tangent time? Like an hour? 2 hours?
I was trying to think of that. I was like, wait, didn't we beat Enzo's time
I feel like
at one
it was
point?
like 2 hours.
I think it was. Because we were
I
trying
wish
to beat
I wish
intro.
we would have been on top of saving and keeping all of those, our first like 3 seasons of podcast episodes stored. I wish we wouldn't have been such rats. I do think, though, that us doing every other week for podcasts will make it easier for us to download and upload them in a more timely fashion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
no,
but I do wish that because some of those old episodes are so fun, and I wish I could, like, watch them back and see. Especially that Enzo one and, like, the Citrine one. Back in the day, guys, we used to do podcasts, like when our first season we were still figuring our stuff out, our dynamic and stuff. We did invite guests on, and we would choose a topic, but with each guest to focus on. And it was a lot of fun, but I do think that working with the guest is a lot harder than just me and Lila. Because me and Lila, we've been friends since 3rd grade. So we know each other, and we like can easily work together and like fill in each other's stuff and not worry about like other personalities and whatnot. And also we research very similarly in terms of how in depth we go and how we structure things. So it's kind of hard to add another like random person, even if they're like our friends. You don't know how someone researches or how someone dives into a topic, you know? But I did like that we tried it. Works. We tried it out in the first season.
We did a lot with a lot of people.
We did DBZ, Puppy, Chi, Minnie, Enzo, Citrine, Sal. I think that's it. I think that was all of them. I'm sorry if I forgot you. If I forgot you, I'm so sorry.
Did we forget anyone?
I hope not. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if we forgot you.
So sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, I do like that we at least tried it out. But I do like not having to have another person. It's just like the gang, you know? Us, the duo.
Yeah. The duo. Woo!
All right. I said I was not going to say any more tangents, but I literally just went on another one.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you just did.
And it was the 3.5 minute tangent. All right, we're going to do the intro, guys. Lila, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Between the 1850s and 1920s, nearly 250,000 children were put on trains in New York City and sent to the West, looking for new families and new lives.
Some found loving homes, others found something very different, and the legacy they left behind still shapes our child welfare system today.
This chapter of American history is known as the Orphan Train movement, and boy, was it a controversial one.
Yeah. Who were these children? Who made the decisions that sent them across the country? And what happened when the train doors finally opened?
Welcome back to the series of Geektastic Events. I'm your host, Sero the Librarian.
I'm your other host, Lila Onikuma. And today we will be uncovering the answers to those questions.
Dun dun dun. I always dun 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 at the end.
Dun dun
dun! Yeah, no, this, I mean, like Lila reacted there, controversial. This is going to be controversial. It's very, it's so interesting because I get the motivation, I get the intention behind this whole thing. And I don't think that it was like at all meant to be malicious or, you know, controversial as it becomes. But man, oh man, was this interesting to say the least.
I will say, like, at the very end of, like, kind of reviewing everything, I definitely feel like some of the issues then are still very much so issues that are still going on today with the actual foster care system.
Yep.
It's so bad.
It is.
It's so bad. It literally just transitioned from one thing to another. So it's like, it only adds to the complexity of it, I feel like.
Yeah, it is very, I mean, I think there's less. We'll get into it. I'm not going to say anything now. We'll get into it as we go.
Yeah. They're definitely, it is better, like, now.
I don't know if it's necessarily better. I think it's just shifted focus. We'll get into it. We'll see. You'll see what we mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's set the scene here first. All right. The mid-1800s brought with it the end of the first industrial revolution, which had brought waves of impoverished immigrants to America to find their American dream. In the 1840s, thousands of immigrants would arrive in New York City on the daily. Many came because of chain migration, which is when a family member migrates somewhere, sees that there is a lot of opportunity and success in that area, reports back to the family members in the original country, and then everybody from the family comes over to the new joint. So family members were reporting back about the opportunities in America and telling their family members to join them in America with them. So that caused a lot of chain migration. And then there were other factors like the Irish potato famine. There in Germany, there was a lot of political and religious persecution because there was a bunch of revolutions across Europe. And so a lot of Irish and German immigrants came to flee from their problems in their own countries and find some new opportunities in America. And then we also get the U.S. government. So the U.S. was advertising themselves to foreigners, particularly Germans, through shipping companies, and even some states' governments were advertising themselves. So the U.S. was saying, hey, everybody, come on over, which in the long run probably wasn't the best idea, but they were doing it. And so there was tons and tons and tons of people coming into the New York City port, especially, but all across the East Coast of America. So these immigrants would soon find that this prosperity isn't guaranteed for everyone. New York City's infrastructure couldn't keep up with the mass migration. This meant that all available housing was super overcrowded, and when it came down to it, this was the beginning of America's first notorious slum, which is 5 points. There we go. Switch it to 5 points. So I don't think this is necessarily the first. I think it's the first notorious slum. I don't think it's the first slum. I think there's always been homeless.
Yeah.
As long as humans have been on this earth. But this is the first notorious slum. It was known across America, but it was also known in Europe. It was very well known by many, including Charles Dickens, who we will get a quote from in a second. But yeah. So we have a lot of, like I said, Irish, German immigrants there. We have a lot of African American former slaves there, and we have all of their families, and even immigrants as well that are there. And then we have, what else was it? Italian. We got Italians. We have a lot of Italians as well. That's a big one. I can't forget the Italians. So there's all kinds of cultures and groups staying in this slum, 5 Points. And that also, leads to activities that are not the most legal. A lot of gangs. And a lot of gangs, particularly for each group. So, like, there's the Irish gangs, Italian gangs, that would eventually become Italian mobster gangs. And,
I was going to say.
Yeah, this is the beginning. This is the origin story, guys, of the mob. In New York City, at least. So
I was going to say in the U.S.
Yeah, in New York City, at least. So the Italian journalist Adolfo Rossi, and who was also the editor of New York's Italian language newspaper Il Progresso Italo-Americano, visited the area and wrote about it in his newspaper. So this was from around 1880. He says, "It is an agglomeration of repulsive, dilapidated black houses where people are piled on top of each other, worse than beasts. Large families live in only one room. Men, women, dogs, and cats eat and sleep together in the same cubbyhole without air or light. In some houses on Baxter or Mulberry Street, there is so much dirt and foul air, it would seem impossible that there would not be a fatal cholera outbreak with the first summer heat every year. Yet many people who never wash their faces and are condemned to live in unhealthy hovels with their squalid wives and their ragged children still work, earn, and save." And then we have Charles Dickens. As I said, he came and visited America. He was super excited. One of his biggest, his biggest bucket list moments of visiting America was to visit this slum. He was so down. He was so excited to visit 5 Points because, like I said, it was notorious in Europe as well and across America. It was big. So when he came and visited, he wanted to visit 5 Points. So he writes about 5 Points on his highly celebrated visit to America. And this was 1840s, 1830s maybe. "Here, too, are lanes and alleys paved with mud blah, 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 blah. Let me start over.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Words. Blah, 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 blah.
Sorry, I gotta take a drink. I'm getting too excited, guys. "Here, too, are lanes and alleys paved with mud knee-deep underground chambers where they dance and game, the walls bedecked with rough designs of ships and forts and flags and American eagles out of number. Ruined houses open to the street, whence through wide gaps in the walls other ruins loom upon the eye, as though the world of vice and misery had nothing else to show. Hideous tenements which take their name from robbery and murder. All that is loathsome, drooping, and decayed is here." So that is how he describes 5 Points on his visit. His very exciting visit to 5 Points. So, yeah, obviously, from both of these accounts, you can kind of tell it's not a great place to be. It's very overpacked because of all of the immigrants that have come to the Americas and all of the people that were already in New York City, because this is a huge city, guys, especially right after Industrial Revolution. A lot of people are here, and they're all right on top of each other. So yeah, not a great place to live. This overcrowding and impoverished way of living led to several epidemics spreading throughout the slums, leaving behind many orphans or single-parented children. They had several epidemics. So I think there was like cholera, there was some plague. I don't remember what it was, but there was several epidemics that swept through these slums. And I mean, if you're living on top of each other, there's not a lot of hygiene going around because you don't really have the room to do such. It's inevitable that everyone is going to be affected by this. So, yeah, lots of orphans or single-parented children. And these newly single parents often found themselves overwhelmed with trying to financially support all of their children by themselves, and sometimes chose to release or abandon some of their children in order to make ends meet. So this time, like we talked about this last week or last week, whenever we last did our podcast, but a lot of families in like the past 100 years, like before like our 90s, 80s, whatever, they had like 9 children, 10 children. Like they had a lot of children.
Oh my God.
So like imagine you lose your husband, your wife, and then you're just like here with 9 children and you're already living in the slums, barely making ends meet. And now you've lost a whole nother person's income. And yeah, so a lot of them had to just release their children to, we'll get into it, but there's children's homes that will eventually get introduced to. But also they would just send them out on their own. If they were old enough, they would just say, hey, go out there and do something with life. Like, I can't help you. But they also would abandon little children, like babies and such. There was a police officer who said in an interview that he would find at least one baby on the street a day during those times.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So there were a lot of people abandoning their children, releasing their children. And, you know, those children, they lived. A lot of them lived. A lot of them did what they had to do, but it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. And also having children became a nightmare. Like something that we now celebrate and are so happy about. Getting another child was like detrimental to your life. Like you'd get pregnant and you'd be devastated, which is crazy to think about. The times have changed for sure. Like there were no gender reveal parties, y'all. It was a funeral brigade. It was not happy. It was a not happy time. Yeah, so
damn.
Like I said, yeah, people would leave their newborn at churches, police stations, or even on the street to die. Those with older children, 7 or 8, which is not older children in my opinion, but back then that was older children to them. 7 or 8-year-olds would often be sent off to find their own way through the world because they had a higher likelihood of success than the young ones did. So this is where we get into child labor. Lots of child labor during this time. And a lot of people took advantage of them for that. They were paid way less than adults, worked to the bone, and were still not able to afford a place to live. So they were homeless, 7 and 8-year-olds working to the bone for pennies and still homeless at the end of the day. And basically I can't understand being like the owner of a business, and because a lot of these owners would just work these little kids, these 7 or 8-year-olds, until they were literally unable to work. Like they would get an injury, or they would become disabled, or get sick, or whatever happened because of malnourishment and all of that, and they would just fire them and hire someone new off the street. Like there was no concern at all for these children. Because they were born from the scum, they just were scum. I don't know. Because, like, they didn't treat all children like this, obviously. Like, they wouldn't treat their own children like this. But I guess because they were poor and didn't look the part of anything higher than that, they just weren't. It was almost like they didn't think of them as humans. They were like animals. It was very hard to hear, definitely, because I've watched a bunch of documentaries last week about this, and there were tons of stories about especially young boys getting hurt and just being thrown away and replaced in like a second. And it was so sad. It was so sad. But yeah, so these kids fending for themselves had to get the work. And some of these children were placed in what we would call today orphanages. They weren't called that back then. They were called like the home of the lost. There was several other names for them, but what we would now call orphanages. But even those were overcrowded. Like, you only have so much space, and they were very prison-like, a lot of these first orphanages. It was very strict rules. They would be punished with not being able to eat. There was some orphanages where you had to like pay your way. So if you couldn't pay your way in the orphanage, you would be kicked out of the orphanage. It was just not a good time for children, man. I don't know how some of these children did it. Like, they had to have been so mature for their age, because I can't imagine a 7 or 8-year-old Sero fending for herself on the street and not like falling apart. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have let's take some time for some pictures. So a lot of pictures are available during this time because there were a lot of people that were like journalists or activists, that what we would call activists today. They were documenting this kind of stuff. So luckily we do have a lot of proof and representations of how kids were living. They were often pictured living under bridges, in alleyways, that sort of place. And we'll get into this later, but they did band together, a lot of these children, which I think in the end saved a lot of them. I think if they would all have been fending for themselves, it would have been a very different story. But they did make their own sort of families, even if they were all made of children, and still not great. But yeah. So we get into the 50s. Children by the thousands, an estimated 30,000, were living on the streets of New York City. They spent their days selling rags, matches, newspapers, just to try and survive. Let's see if I have... Yeah, so there's some kids working. Like, look how tiny these guys are. Like, they look like 9, 10 maybe. Some of them look like maybe 14. But they're just little guys, and they're all just in a row working. And then we have these guys. Which, there's so many pictures of kids smoking, man. There's so many. I could not. There's so many. There was a lot of emulating adulthood in these children, because obviously, hey, if you're fending for yourself, you have to become the adult, you know? So, like I said, newspapers were a big thing, and that's what these group of boys right here are doing. The newspaper boys. What inspired the musical Newsies, if any of you have seen that musical. They formed gangs for protection, which is those groups of children I was talking about, because life on the streets has never been safe or easy. These gangs would fight over turf, steal, and beg on the streets together. The police often arrested these children and locked them up in correctional facilities with adult criminals. So there was no separation between delinquents and adults. So they were placed in there with grown adult criminals, like really bad people, and I would be terrified. And some of these children even faced capital punishment for their crimes, being hung in the street for all of the other children to see. There were children as young as 10 or 12 that this would happen to, which is I know it's a different time, but it makes me so sad. Like, I know this would not happen today.
Does.
I know that we're not like hanging
Makes me
12-year-olds,
sad.
but it's so sad to think that at some point in our history we were just doing that without any moral dilemma going on. Yeah. So these kids had to fight for their lives on the street. It really was their only way to survive. Even, we'll talk about him in just a second, but Charles Loring Brace, the person that eventually does come up with the orphan train movement and all of that, he even says, like, he understood that they were doing what they had to do. Like, obviously, crime is not very godly. But yeah, Charles Loring Brace is he's a Lutheran or something? I don't remember. I'll have to find. Oh, he's a Protestant minister. There we go. And but he very much recognizes that these children could not have survived if they didn't do what they were doing. They would have been dead much before he was even able to save them if they didn't resort to petty crime and all of that stuff. So a lot of people did, though, judge these children, which, I mean, I guess I get, but also no. Like, what else were they supposed to do? But yeah, they were often like looked down on. They were called urchins. They were called tons of awful names. And they were often dismissed. Like, there was no getting out of these kind of spaces. Like, no one was giving these boys chances during, like, the early days, at least. They were just seen as scum and would ever be scum if they continued to do what they were doing. So, yeah, very sad, very hard to think about. But I digress. We will continue on to our Charles Loring Brace section. But yeah, that's our background. That's our background of how this all starts. The homelessness, the immigration wave that comes into New York City, all of that. That is what leads us to what we will see now. So in comes Charles Loring Brace. There he is. Like I said, he's a Protestant minister. He saw the suffering around him and wanted to do something about it. I have a hiccup.
He has a really big beard.
Yeah, he does.
Really
Sorry, I had to drink water upside down. It always works, guys. If you have the hiccups, drink water upside down, man. I just tip my head over. I don't actually go upside down.
I was gonna say, how did you?
Yeah, no, I just tip my head over and swallow, and that whatever for whatever reason works. But yeah, he does have a big beard. You are correct. He does. Yeah. So Protestant minister. He felt that orphanages were overcrowded and gloomy places, and that they didn't teach children to become productive members of society. So he was not a fan of orphanages. Those on the street would ultimately live lives of crime and poverty, though he acknowledged that these children didn't have any other choices if they wanted to survive. In 1853, he founded the Children's Aid Society, CAS, which hoped to ensure the physical and emotional well-being of children and provide them with the support needed to become successful adults. So he started his journey into child aid, into helping children during this time, with opening the first Newsboys Lodging House. Here, let me get those on here. I'll keep Charles up here. All right. So here is one of those lodging houses. There we go. So these lodging houses were specifically for those newsboys I was talking about. It allowed only boys and also turned away anybody who was found to have living parents. So it was very specific about orphans, and only boys, because obviously they didn't want to have to deal with boys and girls in the same space and like the troubles that come with that, protecting young girls from the older boys and all of that. Yeah, no. I understand.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
children of all races and religions were allowed to stay in the house. Boys were not allowed to smoke or swear in the house, but as long as they followed the rules and kept the midnight curfew, they were allowed to come and go as they pleased. So it was not, they were not parenting these children. It was a place for them to sleep and eat and, you know, take a shower or bathe or whatever and, you know, get clean. But they were still in charge of their own lives, because that was a big thing with these homeless children that had been in gangs and on their own for so long. They didn't want to be told what to do. Those orphanages that were very strict and had a lot of rules and punishments, a lot of those children ran away from those orphanages because they were like, I'm not under anyone's authority. I've been living on my own. I'm in charge and I don't want anyone else to be. So Charles recognized this and made it so that the newsboy lodging house wouldn't be like a parent overseeing their children. It was very much like a hotel that an adult would use, but it was for children that were living on the streets. Yeah. And
It was for children.
they would even make them pay like a small fee, like a pence or like 6 pence or something like that. I like not pence, but what a penny, 6 pennies. There we go. And so they were very much creating a space for the boys to get some sort of help, but not feel like they were being controlled or taken advantage of or whatever, which I think was very smart of him. He definitely recognized that these kids who have been roughing it on their own were not going to be happy to try out anything other than something that they were in control of still. So he also eventually provided basic education and work training at these lodging houses, and he did open several others, but he kept having to open more and more and more because there were just so many homeless children in New York. There were too many of them. Like, he couldn't keep up with creating these lodgings, and they needed a bigger solution. So he puts his brains to use, comes up with an idea to provide each homeless child on the streets of New York City a home and parents, because he truly believed that a loving home, and a well-disciplined lifestyle, and, you know, obviously he was a minister, so he did think that they all needed to go to church and, you know, learn about the Bible and all of that. He did also include that in his spiel, but he just wanted them to have stability, because without stability, they would never become productive members of society. That was his thought process. So to endeavor into finding these children homes, he thought about who would take them in. Well, those that had been moving to the West, and this is not our West. This is the West of the time. So we're not going to Cali. We're going to the Midwest.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to the corn.
Yeah, we're going here to the corn where we are now. Where Lila and I are in the corn. Yeah, so they're in the West, the Midwest. I'll just say the Midwest so that we're clear about where we are.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So he recognized that those in the Midwest needed help on their farms and could surely use an extra hand, because agriculture was booming in the Midwest. We are the land of the corn, so makes sense. And they were constantly in need of help and labor, and there was always something to be done on the farm. This is where the mistakes are beginning. So he proposes to send these homeless children to communities in the Midwest in hopes of finding them families, particularly families who need help on their farms, because those are the ones that are likely to take them in. So he spends a year testing the waters by sending individual children to nearby farms in places like Pennsylvania or Connecticut. In September 1854, the CAS tried out its first large-scale expedition to the Midwest. Now, for these small ones, they would use buses, carriages, those sorts of things. But, well, not buses, but, like big, big things, big carriages and such. But to do big transportation across long distances, there was only one quick and safe way to do it, and that was trains. If you didn't guess it, orphan trains is very literal. Very literal.
Very, yeah, really.
There we go. Okay, we'll do that one.
Choo-choo.
Yes. So the CAS took a group of 56 children from ages 56 children from ages 7 to 15 by train to Dowagiac, Michigan. Not sure if I said that city right. Michigan, Michigan people, sorry. You... I'm sure you wouldn't be able to say Keokuk, I don't know what to say. But yeah, so they're in Michigan. By the end of the week, by the end of the week, 46 of the children were placed in homes, and 10 of them were, I'm trying to remember where they went. I think they were housed there until all of them got eventually adopted out. But some sources were saying that all 56 children got placed in homes, and others were like, no, there was 10 left over that eventually had to be placed elsewhere, like in neighboring, a neighboring village or town. So kind of iffy about the information on the first one, but overall a very successful journey. This success prompted the CAS to expand their program, sending more and more children, accompanied by an agent, not unlike what we would eventually have social workers, to find homes in the Midwest. And this success eventually leads to even orphanages and other organizations starting to organize their own groups to send, either on their own or with help from the CAS. So this starts a whole smorgasbord of orphan train expeditions from a bunch of different areas, a bunch of different organizations. It was a whole lot. But this was the foundations. Charles was the foundation of the orphan train movement. So I have some pictures up here. We have these kids in the train looking out. And then down here, these are the agents. The two women here, those are the agents that would go with the children. And I'll get into the whole process here in a second, but that's what the pictures are showing. Let me make sure I have my stuff in order. Yeah, I think so. Okay. I'll leave this up for now, this train one.
I'm looking at a really cool ad.
Oh, yeah, because we're in the ad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Let me decide how I want to do this.
You're good.
Okay. So we're going to go through the process, all of the different pieces of the puzzle. The agents.
Ooh, puzzle.
Like I said, very much like what we would call social workers today. They would accompany the children to their new homes, would visit the community selected 2 weeks prior to the endeavor, and arrange newspaper advertisements, hotel accommodations, meeting locations, and also a local committee, which we will talk about in a second. So they do that 2 weeks prior, then they'd go back, get the kids, and bring them to their new homes. Most of these agents were very passionate about this work and checked on the children regularly. Some even kept in contact with them even after they'd come of age. And this, like I said, very much a precursor to a social worker. Now, the agents, like I said, would put in advertisements. Let me get this. For the children when they got to the town. So they do this in the newspaper, on the church bulletin board, in like the local government buildings, all of those places. So it would be like wanted homes for children. A company of homeless children from the east will arrive at Missouri on Friday, February 25th, 1910. So this is an example of one of those. And then it says like applicants must be ready, or wait, what does it say? Applications must be ready and approved by the local committee, or read and approved by the local committee. So that local committee, geez Louise, can't read or talk for the life of me. Jeez Louise. So these local committees were in charge of looking at applications. So yes, you were applying for a child. Much like in like adoption application, like if you were to adopt a child.
I was going to say kind of similar.
Yeah, very similar to that. Also, hi, Shadow.
Oh, hello.
Yes, hello. So very, very similar to an adoption application. Kind of. We'll get into it. So yeah, local committee would take those applications and cipher through them and make sure that they had suitable families. The CAS knew that there needed to be a system to check the backgrounds of potential placements. So those local committees were community members, often church, like what are they called? Clergy. The local clergy would often be
I was going to say, I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah. The local clergy would often make up this committee, or government officials or school teachers or in the area, like just people that are respectable in whatever sense that respectable was that in that day and age. They had knowledge of their neighbors and can inform the agents about potential families and maybe potential families that they didn't want to be placed with children. At its beginning, like I said, members of the local clergy made up this committee, and they would collect the applications from interested families and advise the agents on whom to choose. Now, these local committees kind of got a little stinky sometimes because there was politics going on. There was,
of course,
rich, powerful men taking advantage of these local committees to get free labor for whatever he had going on that he wanted free labor for. The local committees, they were intended to be very helpful and good. And I will say that many of them were, but there obviously were things that slipped through the cracks. So they weren't all good. And I do think that the local committees had a lot to do with the bad stories that we will eventually get into. The not so happy, lovely placements that happened to some of these children. Yeah. So these placements were often done at churches, hotels, schools, or courthouses. The agent in charge would speak about their mission, about each child, and about the expectations of the families participating. So these are the expectations. Children were not chore boys or kitchen drudges. They were to get schooling, go to church, go to Sunday school, and be taught how to be contributing citizens. The families would then be able to meet with the children and select whom they wanted to take, which was when they had the way that it was described in some of these like articles and documentaries that I was looking into. It very much felt like a cattle auction almost. Like there would be a lot of the farm workers or the rich men I was talking about. They'd go up to this line of children who had, let me get a picture here. I have a picture of, so there's like, these children would have these like note cards basically that had their name, their age, some information about them. And again, I will say, we have to remember that a lot of these children are coming from immigrant families. So some of them didn't even speak English. Some of them didn't even like know how to communicate with these families that they were being placed with. So they would have to have like things written out on their note card to like represent that. They did, I will say, they did try and find families that could communicate with like other immigrants or people that had immigrants in their family that were able to communicate with these German, Irish, Italian orphan children. But it didn't always work out, obviously. There's, like I said, slipped through the cracks. They did try. But yeah, it felt very like a cattle auction. Like they were just there with their cards. The family often would come up, look at the kid. Some would check their teeth. Some would like check their limbs to make sure that they were, you know, healthy young men a lot of the times. So it just felt very icky to me being described like that. Like, I get it. They're like, they have a lot of children. They want to be able to get them all placed. So they just have them all grouped up and you just see who looks good. But it felt so, I don't know if you experienced that in any of your research, Lila, but it felt icky to me.
Yeah.
Very icky.
It all feels, yeah.
It feels icky. That's all I can say. Okay, yeah. So, like I said, families would meet the children, take a look at them, say, this is the guy I want, and then they would take him home. There was did I put it in here? I did. Where is it? Timeout. There's like an application that they had to, or not an application, but like an agreement they had to sign. Where the frick did I put it? Oh, there it is. Okay. So.
Hydrate, Sero.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I hydrated. All right. Here we go. Here's an example. Yeah. So this is a Children Aid Society like contract. So, it says the society reserves the right to remove the child previous to legal adoption if at any time the circumstances of the home become such as, in the judgment of the agent, are injurious to the child's future prospects. Children are not allowed to correspond with any friends or relatives without obtaining permission to do so from the society. It has the name of the child, the family that it's going to live with, the age of the child, like where they're going to be, all of that information. So each child that was placed had to be signed over, basically. Like they had to assign an agreement that they were going to let them go to church, let them go to school, all of these different things. And it was an expectation from the CAS that the families would follow these to the T. In the early days, after a placement, the agent stayed in town to visit each child in their new home to make sure it was a good fit. If the family was unsatisfactory, a new home was found. Within the first year, an agent returned to each home twice to check on things again, and until they were formally adopted or aged out of the program, an agent would look in on them once a year. During these visits, school teachers, Sunday school teachers, pastors were interviewed about the child's welfare, and there was also an expectation for the families and the children to write to the CAS twice a year. So they were pretty thorough for the most part about trying to make sure that these kids were being looked after, even from states and states away. They wanted to make sure that they didn't place someone in a bad home, right? They wanted these children to live fulfilled lives. That's why they were doing this. And like I said earlier, the agents, a lot of them were very passionate about this. So they did check in on them as much as possible. All this to say, though, there were still those, like I said, who slipped through the cracks as the endeavor kept growing and growing because, you know, early days, they were doing like 50, hundreds maybe, but they were doing thousands of child placements at one point, and it was growing and growing and growing. And they were trying as hard as they could for what they had, but I definitely think they needed more agents. They definitely needed more local committees. Like there was I mean, there was definitely issues with how they were doing it. I do understand, though, what their intentions were. I do think that they were very good and morally good intentions, I should say. But man, yeah, no. So there's a study that has been done on the orphan train kids by several societies that have been participants, like states that have been participants of the exchange in the 80s, or 80s, the 1800s, and 1900s, early 1900s. So they've come to a kind of consensus that there's like an estimated 80% of children who were placed in decent homes and found actual family and love. But that leaves like a really large chunk, a 20% chunk of kids that did not find those good homes. They found themselves working long and unfair hours, not getting to attend school or church, and in some cases being abused. So, like I said, as the endeavor grew bigger and bigger, those agents weren't able to keep up with all of the children that they had placed. I mean, you're taking hundreds of children each year. You're not going to be able to check on every single one of them as one person. Like, they definitely need more agents, like I said. But yeah, so
yeah.
I'm going to talk about some of these children, these 20% children, because I definitely think that their stories are the ones that don't really get highlighted. I mean, they do now, but back in the day, it was more like, oh, look at all these children that are, having better lives because of this, but they kind of didn't recognize or highlight that they did make mistakes, because who wants to admit their own mistakes, But yeah, I do think that we need to recognize some of these children and kind of understand what a lot of these kids had to go through, because some of them are genuinely horrific stories. So I have two stories here. We'll do this one first. So one such child of the 20% was Charles Frederick. Let me get rid of these pictures real quick. Okay. So one of these children was Charles Frederick. Franklin Frederick, who was his son, says his dad arrived on an orphan train in Rockford on September 6th, 1888. Frederick says his father told him that he and the other children bound for Durand were picked up in a covered wagon by John Nelson, a Durand farmer. The roads were so rugged they had to stop overnight at a stageway station on Trask Bridge Road. The next day they arrived in Durand, where the different farmers picked them up, Frederick says. His father went to the Linens, a family that had come from Ireland in the 1850s and farmed 160 acres north. Jeez Louise, my VTube studio crashed. Okay. Where was I? And farmed 160 acres north of Durand. The boy worked hard and had the chance to attend a one-room school off and on for 4 years. However, the Linens were not a warm family, and his father never felt loved, Frederick says. When he was 17, Charles Frederick ran away. One evening, he threw his clothes out the window, his son says, and he said he was going to the outhouse, but never came back. Charles Frederick worked for farmers around Shirland and Harrison, and later came to Rockford, where he married in 1911, and in 1913 he moved to a house in Loves Park, where he lived for 47 years. His first job was at Hess and Hopkins, a tannery, and he later worked for Patterson Lumber Co. for 21 years. Still later, he was a plant guard, and he and his wife moved to California in 1960, and he lived there until he was 80 when he died in 1962. So this is just an example of not necessarily one of the absolute worst families someone could live with, but like I said, a lot of these families were farmers, and they weren't looking for new children to love and home. They were looking for people to work. They wanted child labor, and free child labor at that. There were some changes here and there to the agreements where they had to pay the children if they were going to be working for them, but obviously not. They weren't all going to be doing that. They couldn't keep every family in check all the time. So a lot of these farmers would just work the children that they got from the orphan train movement to the bone. They wouldn't pay them. They wouldn't let them go to school, wouldn't let them go to church. Like, they were basically indentured servants. And we'll get into some of the opposition to this, but a lot of people thought it very much represented maybe a likelihood to slavery at the time. A lot of abolitionists were very against this whole thing, which is kind of ironic because Charles Loring Brace was a huge abolitionist. He was ahead of his time as an abolitionist. He wrote in, I think it was either a book or an article, he talks about how men or people of different races have no differences in intellect and no capability. Like, for an abolitionist during the time, that was like huge. Like, basic things that we believe in now was huge for people back then. But yeah, he was a huge abolitionist. He did not play around with that stuff. And his whole family was. His dad, his grandfather, they all were very big supporters of not having slaves and not allowing anyone around them to think that it was okay to have slaves. But there were some that thought that Charles Loring Brace's movement did kind of look like slavery in some cases, which I will agree. Some of them were literally indentured servants at some point. So I can see the comparison for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah. So like I said, some of them were like that. They were basically just laborers. They didn't have any love in their lives. They just worked for the family that they stayed with. And a lot of them ran away. A lot of them did run away to find their own way and find family and love. And eventually they, had their own families and found work elsewhere and lived perfectly good lives. But still, growing up without love cannot be something that we just brush off. It's a big, important part of a child's development, for sure. Okay, so let me... Yeah, no, it's sad. You're going to be even more sad. I'm sorry to say. You're going to be even more sad. So, like I said, that's like a not great family, but not the worst. There were much worse families. There were much, much worse families. We're going to talk about Charles Miller, who was also known as Kansas Charlie, and trigger warning for unaliving both yourself and others. So murder and suicide warning. So if that is something that you don't want to listen to, maybe skip ahead if you're on YouTube to a different part of the video. If you're here live with us, just zone out for maybe like 10, 15 minutes. Like, just get out of here. No shame in that.
Zone out.
Yeah. So let me find... okay. Yeah. So Candace Charlie Miller was born Carl or Charles Miller on November 20th, 1874 in a Manhattan, New York tenement to Frederick and Mary Elise Miller. His parents were German and Irish immigrants, and the family spoke German. Charlie had two older siblings, Caroline and Fred. The family later added another son, William, and after their mother's death, Charlie's father tried to keep the family together but could not find work and began drinking heavily. After his father committed suicide, the children were taken to the Children's Aid Society. Charlie was only 6 years old. According to a book published in 2003 by Joan Jacobs Brumberg, Kansas Charlie, Charles Miller, was first placed out in Princess Anne County, Virginia, by the Children's Aid Society. This placement expected a great deal of labor from the 12-year-old boy and lasted less than 6 months. Not only did he have no experience doing such work, he also was not interested in doing such work. He was not born to be a farmer, that's for sure. After time back in New York, Charlie rode an orphan train to St. Charles, Minnesota, accompanied by Agent Charles R. Fry. Charlie was small for his age, with blue eyes and fair hair. The farm family of William and Nancy Booth, whose birth children were now adults, did not want to continue to pay hired hands to help with the farm labor. Charlie was to provide this service for room and board. Of course, he had little to no experience working with land and raising crops. Another reason why placements for Charlie were doomed before they had a chance at success was his disease. Charlie was a long-term bedwetter. Many remedies had been administered during his time at the CAS, some very cruel, with no success. These treatments were only served to crush the psyche of the young boy. Charlie ran away from the Booth farm and worked for another area farmer who provided adequately for the boy's physical needs. Eventually, he received word from the CAS that he should join his older brother Fred, a writer, to Leonardville, Kansas, on the Preston Loughborough farm. Later, Charlie's brother William was also sent for by the Loughborough family. By the time Charlie turned 14, he was sent to live with friends of the Loughboroughs, James and Mary Elizabeth Colt, in Randolph, Kansas. If you have been counting, this is the 5th family for Charlie in less than 2 years. His adolescent mind dreamed about having things he saw in advertisements and from seeing more well-to-do citizens in the community. But the Colt family did not wish to provide nice clothing. They were looking for additional labor for their printing business, and once again, Charlie ran away. It was about this time that Charlie tagged himself Kansas Charlie. Charlie trampled across the Midwest on the railroad, visiting cities like Omaha, Des Moines, Iowa, and Chicago. He picked up the lingo from other tramps, earned a bit of money doing odd jobs, and in general enjoyed his newly acquired lifestyle. Charlie intended to go back to Rochester, New York, where his sister was well situated working as a domestic. He took work as a deckhand on a freighter headed for Rochester, and his sister Caroline and her employers tried to help Charlie when he appeared on their doorstep. He found work and was able to participate in the lower fringes of society and pleased to clothe himself decently by his standards. He turned 15, and when the wanderlust overtook him, he headed west to become a cowboy. He became fully engaged in thievery to make his way across the country, spending time in Holmesburg, Pennsylvania, House of Corrections. His 6-week term of incarceration exposed him to hardened criminals who shared violent stories of life on the streets. Tramping from Pittsburgh to Kansas City, Charlie was brutalized by a group of tramps. This contributed to Charlie's angst about his present disease and led to him becoming paranoid about protecting himself. He bought a gun in a pawn shop for $1.25, more than half of what he had ever made in 1 week's wages. He rummaged through trash bins and ate from kitchen scraps at hotels. He periodically wrote letters to his brother Fred and his sister Caroline, and he was on the run, hungry and armed. When Charlie arrived in Omaha, he heard about jobs for cowboys in Wyoming. His plan was to hop a Union Pacific train and head to Wyoming to find work. The boxcar he found himself traveling in was occupied by 2 young men of modest means, Waldo Emerson and Ross Fishbaugh, from St. Joseph, Missouri. They had purchased new clothes for their adventure, had some cash in their pockets, and were also armed. Emerson also carried a handsome silver pocket watch. Neither had any qualms about flaunting their position over the young tramp. In Sidney, Nebraska, the 2 young gentlemen wished to be separated from the poorly dressed, ill-kept Charlie. They were spending cash freely, enjoying food and strong drink, while Charlie was left to sift through trash and beg for nourishment. By complete coincidence, the 3 travelers found themselves together again in the same boxcar. The vibe among the 3 was now more tense than when they first met, mostly on Charlie's end. The young gentleman had dismissed him completely. Somewhere between Pine Bluff and Hillsdale, Wyoming, a starving, inebriated, and smoldering Charlie Miller took the lives of the 2 young gentlemen. He stole a knife and the pocket watch from Emerson. From Fishbaugh, he took 45 paper dollars $2 silver, a knife, and a .38 revolver. Charlie left behind his own .32. Today, doctors and psychologists study the effects of home life and health on a growing child. Back then, the child was simply considered bad. Charlie immediately headed into Hillsdale. He did not know the bodies had been quickly discovered, with Fishbowl still alive. When the train arrived in Cheyenne, I think is what it's called, the boxcar murder was the story of the day. And Fishbowl never recovered, and the local authorities began the job of trying to determine how and why the men had been killed. Papers on the bodies led to quick notifications of the families in St. Joe. Charlie arrived on a passenger train to Cheyenne just hours after the train carrying the dead men. He ate, bought a new shirt, had his hair cut, and found a new friend with whom to spend time drinking. He was hired on with some sheep herders, but 4 days later had made it back to Leonardville, Kansas, and his brother Fred. During the course of the next few days, all the papers carried the story of the murders along with wild speculations about who could have committed the crimes. During a time of great anguish, Charlie confessed to Fred that he was the guilty party, and Fred's foster father assisted him in traveling to Manhattan, Kansas, to turn himself in to the authorities. Much discussion ensued about the age of the accused murderer, his circumstances, and how society might be affected. After a 3-day trial in Wyoming, Charlie Miller, orphan train rider and 19th century boy murderer, was sentenced to death by hanging. The sentence was carried out April 23rd, 1892. Charlie's adolescent and still developing brain was only 18 years old. So,
damn.
This is a example of a kid who literally just could not find a break in life. He was, like I said, 5 different families in less than 2 years. Like, that is actually really bad on a kid's development. It's very bad. Obviously, like, no love was in any of those families. He was always forced to be a laborer in every family that he ever got placed with. That was all he ever was to them. And eventually he ended up going down a road that led him to making a mistake that he could not make up for. And yeah, he was sentenced to death at the age of 18 years old. That is Charles Miller, aka Kansas Charlie's story. There are other stories. I didn't want to read any abuse stories. I'm sorry, guys. I just can't. They're important, and I encourage you guys to read them on your own for sure if you are okay with reading those types of things. But I personally did not want to read that live on a stream. Yeah. There are tons of stories about, there's one that about a young girl, I can't remember her name, but it was so devastating. And I definitely encourage you to take the time to learn about some more of these kids. I definitely will be linking a lot of the resources that I used to find specific orphan train stories in the description of our YouTube video, and I'll throw them in the Discord server too at some point. But yeah, those are 2 examples of children who were placed in homes that had absolutely no love, and how it affected them as children, in some only as children, because Kansas Charlie never was able to get to move on from that. So yeah, that's 2 examples. I'm sure Lila will have some examples as well, but those are my examples from my time period here. So between 1855 and 1875, the CAS sent an average of 3,000 children to homes each year. They were sent to more than 45 states across the country, as well as Canada and Mexico. And fun fact, children were not sent to the southern states in the early years because, as I said, Brace was an abolitionist and did not want any of the children that he was trying to save to go to states that believed that slavery was okay. So Fun little fact for you. Now, that's just the CAS orphan trains, because, there were other orphan trains that developed as the CAS ones flourished, so grain of salt there. But yeah, none of Charles Boring, what is his name? Charles Loring Brace, there we go. None of Charles Loring Brace's trains sent children to the southern states. The reported success of the orphan trains led to other organizations and institutions starting up their own versions, like I said, and one of these was the New York Foundling Hospital, which was established in 1869 by Sister Mary Irene Fitzgibbon of the Sisters of Charity of New York, and was made to shelter abandoned infants. So this is, and also young single mothers. That was also what they housed. They had housed infants, young single mothers, and I think like toddlers, a little bit older kids, but nothing like older than pretty young kids. On their first day of being like an open, established hospital, they received an infant. An infant was left on their doorstep, and that would set off a whole wave. They were quickly getting infants given to them on their doorstep by police officers. Like they had a whole wave of children coming in. So it was a very much needed hospital for sure. Eventually, the sisters worked in conjunction with priests throughout the Midwest and South in an effort to place these children in Catholic families. So this is a Catholic institution. They were very specific about the families they chose.
Oh, boy.
They sent infants and toddlers to prearranged Roman Catholic homes from 1875 to 1914 on what would be known as baby trains and then eventually mercy trains. So kind of a spin-off of the orphan trains. They would be baby trains because they only typically arranged families for toddlers and infants. So I'll get into why the emphasis on Catholic in a second, because there's a lot of controversy with religion in this, guys, because, Charles Loring Brace, he's was it Protestant minister? I already forgot. Where was he?
I think so. Protestants and Catholics.
Yeah,
Protestant. Bad blood there, bro.
Yeah, Protestant. Yeah, so he's a Protestant minister. Controversial to some. Let me get into sorry. Let me get into some of the negatives that many saw in this movement. So, despite the positive impact this endeavor made in a good many children's lives, there were obvious negatives, and many saw them. The orphan trained children faced obstacles ranging from the prejudice of classmates because they were trained children to feeling like outsiders in their own families during their entire lives. Many rural people viewed the orphan trained children with suspicion as the incorrigible offspring of drunkards and prostitutes. Some children were taken who had parents that were in the hospital or who were just unable to take care of them, but the children wanted to stay close, and they had no choice. They were forced to get on the train like any other kid and go and live with some new family. So even kids that had family that were just ill or couldn't take care of them right now but wanted to in the future, they were even taken. And, forcing children to be taken away from their families is always a controversial issue. And also, anyone that was taken that was like had a mother or father that was in the hospital, a lot of those parents weren't told that their children were even taken and like shipped off across the country. So a lot of them didn't even get reunited. And it's just, they just gave kids away. Yep. They were just like, these kids need to get out of here. They're causing too much trouble. Get them out. So a lot of kids just got taken and forced to board a train and go and live in some farm town. So like I said, they were very much looking for laborers, as we have been experiencing through our stories. So kids that were sick, who were disabled, they had a harder time of getting placed. A lot of the families were looking for more labor, and they were not particularly looking for a child to take care of. So, like I said, they inspected the children's teeth, legs, muscles. If they found anything out of sorts, they would not choose that child, and that child would have a harder time of being placed and often be sent back to live in a home in New York, or like a group home or something, which is very, very sad, obviously. I mean, that still happens today. I'm sure Lila will kind of highlight some of the issues that are still popping up today, but a lot of kids that have disabilities that are in the foster care or orphanage, or, well, I guess child homes is what we call them now, or like if they are in the adoption process, a lot of kids with disabilities don't get picked to be adopted for life. So it's still an issue today, but big issue back here when everyone was trying to get farm work. There were also those who saw those 20% of those kids that were not having good lives and spoke up. So in 1883, Brace consented to an independent investigation. It found the local committees were ineffective at screening foster parents, and the supervision was lax. Many older boys had run away, but its overall conclusion was positive. The majority of children under 14 were leading satisfactory lives. So there was an investigation done into Brace's practices, but ultimately it didn't really change much because the positive outweighed the negative, so they kind of just stuck with it. Brace did acknowledge that there were issues with the local committees, and I do believe that he put in place some helpful changes, but overall, those 20% of children that found negative experiences in those homes didn't get much help. Some residents of placement locations were really angry about being a location for these orphan trains and accused the society of dumping undesirable children from the East onto Western communities. In 1874, the National Prison Reform Congress charged that these practices resulted in increased correctional expenses in the West. So they basically were like, stop sending us criminals, not, oh, these little children need help. Just, they didn't care. They just wanted these ruffians out of their communities. The religion thing. Yeah, so let's get to that. So Catholic clergy maintained that some charities were deliberately placing Catholic children in Protestant homes in order to change their religious practices. The Society for the Protection of Destitute Roman Catholic Children in the city of New York, known as the Protectory, was founded in 1863. The Protectory ran orphanages and place-out programs for Catholic youth in response to Brace's Protestant-centered program. Similar charges of conversion via adoption were made concerning the placement of Jewish children. So there was also a Jewish society that specified that Jewish orphans were placed in Jewish families. So there was a lot of controversy among the clergy of different religions that there was some corruption going on with the way they were placing kids. So they just made their own organizations and shipped out their own kids to different families. Not really sure if they were any more effective than Brace's Protestant homes, but they did it nonetheless. And like I said earlier, some abolitionists opposed placements of children with Western families, viewing indentureship as a form of slavery. And there were some abolitionists that actually viewed it as a good thing, though, because child labor, fewer slaves were necessary. So that was a good thing, because then they didn't need slaves. They had kids. Which I don't think that's the best argument, but some people had it. Some abolitionists were like, hey, if they use child labor, they're not using slaves, and that's good for me, man. Don't agree with that, but whatever. Child labor is very bad, guys. We do not promote, or 200 IQ for real. Like, what kind of backwards thinking is that?
That was a wild statement I just walked back to.
I know, right? Like, hello? Yeah, so that is some of the big issues that came up in the first half of this orphan train movement. These are some of the stories. This is the foundation of what this would eventually become. Now, Lila is going to start talking about the downfall. The downfall. So I've kind of highlighted some of the negatives that were brought up by people during the times, but eventually, yes, it does get stopped. It does get put a stop to, and we also get a new system put in place, which you've definitely heard of.
God.
So now it's Lila's turn to teach us all.
Oh my god. Yeah, thank gosh oh my jeez.
Yeah, thank God we don't send kids to mines for rare earths to make smartphones with. Yeah, child labor doesn't exist today, guys, for sure.
Oh my god.
Guys, everything evil in the world is still happening, I swear. There's still evil everywhere. Yeah, but that last negative or that last controversy I was talking about is wild. Like, imagine being like an abolitionist super against slavery and being like, child labor saves us. Like, child labor is good for slavery because then they don't need slaves. Like, imagine saying that to somebody. Like, what? That makes no sense.
Yeah,
they're both bad. We should not do either. Yeah. So
yeah,
it is insanity. Yeah. So that's my little spiel on the first half of this movement.
Well, what I was gonna say was, like, going off of what you said earlier, I remember I found this quote. Well, not a quote. I found this thing, and so basically there was criticism from both, like you said, the abolitionists who felt that the orphan train supported slavery, and then there's pro-slavery advocates who criticize the practice as well, saying that it's making slaves obsolete. And I just have, like, written right next to that, wow, they both agree on something.
Yeah, what the heck? Evil beans.
I had so many articles pulled up, I don't even remember where
I
read that one from, but
I'm out. I'm gonna post that website that I used for the orphan train stories in the Discord, so if anyone's interested, it'll be there.
Ooh. Oh yeah. How do you do that again? No, that's not it. How do you strike through something again? I already forgot. Let's see. I can't remember what. How do you strike through this? Okay. Well, anyway.
Alt Shift 5 is strike through.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep.
Where'd it go? Crap. Well, lost it already. Okay. Yep, love that for us. Well, whatever. If I, like, repeat it again. Oh, no, I found it. Never mind. There we go. I'll remember at some point. Okay. So, before we kind of get into the downfall. Oh man. Crap, I'm sorry. So, before we get into the downfall and the end of the train, I kind of want to talk about the child welfare system that comes into play before the end of the orphan train. So, because, like, it does have a hand to play in the end of it, as well as, like, the legacy and the building blocks for, like, the current systems we have in place now. So, child well... I can't talk. The child welfare system, 1912, is a system of services and laws ensuring children's safety, well-being, and permanent family connections, intervening when families can't provide care, preventing abuse, investigating neglect, offering family support, arranging foster care, and working towards reunification or adoption to promote healthy development and protect children from harm. So, this is the big one. Core functions of child welfare are prevention, intervention, support services, out-of-home care, and permanency. It really is like... It is huge on... Well, kind... It is supposed to be huge on doing what's best for the child. So, offering support to families to prevent abuse or neglect before it happens, and providing resources to families in their homes to help take care of children, arranging for children to live with relatives or kin before, like, necessarily being placed into the foster system, and then being placed into the foster system if they cannot safely stay at home. And then, like, it also helps work with supposed to work with parents to try to get to that point of, like, a family reunification, and if that is just not an option, like adoption or legal guardianship for a child's care. So, big key goals there: safety, permanency, well-being. I feel like okay. I feel like, some of this is what, the orphan train was trying to do a little bit, not a lot of, like, the reunification stuff, but finding somewhere for them to go. I don't... but definitely protecting children from violence, exploitation, abuse, and neglect. Ensuring that children have stable, lasting family connections, and promoting children's physical, social, and psychological health. Some of this is definitely more modern. But how it works, it's... Okay, so how it works... It's a state-run system with federal guidance involving public agencies that respond to reports of maltreatment. It aims to keep families together whenever possible, but obviously if the child's safety is at risk, there is temporary measures, and it does involve various professionals and laws and resources to support children and family. Okay, so the child welfare system. Now that we've kind of talked about that and got that out of the way, again, this is like 1912 when this first got, like, introduced, and the downfall, like the time frame that we're in right now, the downfall of the orphan train is the 1900s. The train itself ended in 1929. So just 12 years in to like the downfall of the train, this system was introduced. So, winding down by the 1900s with significant drops in the 1920s due to growing state regulations, which we will kind of get into a little bit, against interstate child placement, increased local welfare, and criticism viewing the system as child labor or slavery that Sero was kind of talking about before, which did lead to the final trains in 1929. And again, this train, the orphan train in general, it moved over 250,000 children from the east to the Midwest. So, the continued operations in the early 1900s, still going strong, kind of. The train still ran, placing children in rural homes. But the volumes do begin to slow. It's definitely not as much as it was. Especially with all the backlash and problems that were popping up. So, in the final years, the children so this is, I should say, this is like a child's story. An orphan train rider. There we go. This is her story. This is her experience. She was like one of the riders in the final years of the train running. So she said that in the final years, so the children rode in the sleeping cars, and at any one time there were between 30 to 40 children, infants to teens, traveling with, only a couple adults, like Sero mentioned earlier. So the children often had no idea where they were going and only told where they were going to take a train ride. So Hazel, this orphan train rider, she said, quote, "I just finished eating and this matron came by and tapped us along the head. You're going to Texas. You're going to Texas." And some of the kids, clapped and laughed while she came to me. I looked up. I said, "I can't go. I'm not an orphan. My mother's still living. She's in a hospital right here in New York." And then they told her, "You're going to Texas." No arguing. And actually, Texas, I couldn't find a lot to back this up. It was really hard to just find this in general. But it looked like Texas was the last stop for the train before it finally discontinued.
I didn't know
It
that.
was
Interesting.
This was really hard for me to find just to begin with, because I was looking all over. I was like, if the train stopped in 1929, they'd had to have a last stop, there had to be a last stop.
Yeah.
So there was only it was really hard for me to find this in general, so it was really hard for me to verify. But according to what I found, the last train in 1929 brought 3 children to Sulphur Springs, Texas. So, yeah. That is very far from New York. Anyway, so the New York state was the leading state for fostering children from the trains, followed by Illinois, Ohio, Iowa, and Missouri. So we're going to get into some of the first laws that were starting to be passed during this time. Again, 1900s is when this big downfall started to happen. So 1901, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota, and Missouri passed laws preventing placement of children with disabilities, certain diseases, and demanding better standards for homes, and requiring legal proof of guardianship and formal adoption.
Hmm.
Also, in 1901, we got Nebraska, who demanded legal proof of guardianship for anyone or any organization attempting to adopt out a child. It mandated legal adoption and documentation for placements. So Nebraska was like the first state to kind of get that going. Again, 1901. And Kansas, well, so they, in 1901 as well, they gave the State Board of Charities power to investigate organizations and required certificates of good character for children brought in. So the thing is, so the organization bringing them to the state must also provide the state with a $5,000 bond. So, they got a bunch going for the requirements, right? Well, however, the Board of Charities did not always enforce these rules, and organizations were only investigated when the governor requested it. So the orphan train placements in Kansas continued regardless. Pretty much. See, it's like one step forward, two steps back kind of thing going on here right now.
Yep.
So that all happened in 1901. And then in 1909, the U.S. Children's Bureau established and shifting focus to family support and children protection. So, I definitely feel like I read that wrong. So yeah, in 1909 was when we got that major, big shift to family and children versus kind of what was going on before. But again, it wasn't until 1912 when the U.S. Children's what? Okay, yeah, I definitely mistyped a number here somewhere.
It's okay.
Okay, but it was 1912. It was 1912 when the U.S. Children's Bureau opened, and 1912, the child welfare system started. So that was established with the mission of helping states support children and families and alleviate many of the factors that led to children living on the street. I'm gonna get rid of this 1909 one because I don't trust that one. I definitely mistyped that. Anyway. And then in 1915, the Illinois state legislature began investigating the orphan train system and deemed the practice uncharitable and illegal. Good job, Illinois.
Yay!
We're getting somewhere, guys. Okay. The 1950 law, before we kind of continue down that timeline with the laws, we're going to kind of go over some of the other stuff that kind of played into and played off of these so far to the downfall of the train. So during this time, we got sociology being recognized. Woo! So another factor in the gradual end of the train was the professionalization of sociology and social work. Woo! It's what my sister does now. Woo!
Yeah.
Sociology. Yeah. I'm actually gonna interview her and talk to her about some of this stuff, but then I was like, I'd rather talk to her more if we do like a actual foster care episode or something like that. I don't know. Obviously, like, she wasn't alive then. But anyway, sociology and social work became officially recognized fields of study in the mid 1890s, but the field rapidly expanded during this time, and as professionals were kind of becoming more aware and training, and things were starting to become widely more available and accepted, the standards of welfare and the theories behind them changed a lot. Social work and welfare became more scientific, more oh my god, standardized, and less religious, which led to the increased regulations that had to be met in order to receive public funding. And what are these places without their public funding? So, the change in the welfare program. Programs, again, like they're supposed to provide financial support to families and stuff like that. So, programs providing financial support to families, kind of more like child care types of opportunities. And oh my god. The aim to keep children with their birth families as often as possible. I am sorry, I cannot English today. Oh my goodness. So, large orphanages around this time had housed and instructed hundreds of thousands of children, which was also like really bad. But those also started going down to like the more cottage style housing, or like smaller houses, more with like specialized schools and things of that nature, which continued to emphasize the importance of family during like the Victorian society, like for the Victorian society. So like all these things are like kind of starting or like shifting during this time, and it's all kind of like, oh, what's it called, like you have all these like small things happening at once that leads to like that one big.
It's all coalescing into one big.
Yeah, I can't like think of this big event, or like
Movement.
Yeah, well, anyway, yeah, movement. They're like, yeah, all these small little things making this one big thing happen. So, before we kind of get into the rest of it, I would just like to talk about the child labor side of things, because this was actually not something I really thought about until like the end of my research on the train. But child labor, because one of the big talking points that we talked about earlier was the whole like these children are being worked like slaves kind of thing. So some fun facts that I didn't know, or maybe did learn and forgot, I don't know. In 1916, so 1915 was when Illinois state legislator made like the practice illegal of the orphan train in Illinois, okay? 1916, the following year, we get the Keating-Owen Act, okay? Fuck the Supreme Court. So, the Keating-Owen Act, the first of many federal child labor laws, was passed, okay? It was fucking passed by Congress and the president but was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court.
Bruh.
So let's get into this a little bit, shall we? This act limited the working hours of children and forbade the interstate sale of goods produced by children. We were. It was the first child labor bill, and it was actually based on a 1906 proposal. So it was first proposed in 1906. 10 years later, while the orphan train is still going, and all this crap is still happening to these children, so it was proposed by Senator Albert J. Beveridge, and used the government's ability to regulate the interstate commerce to regulate child labor. It banned the sale of products from any factory, any shop, any products basically that was made by children or by companies that employed children under the age of 14. It banned that. So from children under the age of 14, and then from any mine that employed children under the age of 16, and from any facility that had children under the age of 16 work at night for more than 8 hours during the day. So that's a lot of regulating right there, especially during this time, and especially if, what the fuck, these people are making these kids do when they get to their new families. Very, very big bill, okay? So again, Congress did pass the Keating-Owen Act, and President Woodrow Wilson signed it into law, but the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional via Hammer versus Daggerhart 274, US 251, because it overstepped the purpose of the government's powers to regulate interstate commerce. So basically, they're saying the federal government can't, dictate what the state's sales and commerce basically is like, and I don't know, man, that's just fucking bullshit. Save the kids, damn it. And that's not even the worst of it.
Kids mean nothing.
That was
They mean nothing.
Yeah. So there was another try at this, okay? So that was 1916, right? 1919. Still within the time frame of the orphan train. It's still going on. The Revenue Act of 1919, a similar federal law, it's also known as the Child Labor Tax Law, and it was also struck down by the Supreme Court. So it took an indirect route to regulate child labor. This time, the Supreme Court what's it called? Fuck. Why are words escaping me right now?
It's okay, it'll come to you.
I'll just start from the beginning. Well, my brain will get there. So it took an indirect route to regulate child labor. This time by using the government's power to levy taxes. But the Supreme Court also found that unconstitutional because of Bailey versus Drexel Furniture Company 259 US 2 or US 20. What are those called? Bailey versus Like, the versus duh. They're cases. They're cases. Oh my god. Well, we got there eventually. But basically, the government was going to use their power to change the taxes on certain things that, with basically child labor. But again, that got struck down. So, the court reasoned that the power of Congress to regulate interstate commerce does not extend to curbing the power of states to regulate local trade. So basically, it's almost the exact same thing, almost, that they said last time. And despite the nation's apparent desire for federal laws against child labor, the Supreme Court's ruling left little room for federal legislation. So a constitutional amendment was proposed to give Congress the power to regulate child labor, but the campaign for that, so the campaign for that was the Child Labor Amendment, but it got stalled in the 1920s.
Dude.
By a very effective campaign to discredit it.
The big and powerful just want to pay for cheap child labor, man.
We love it here. America's a capitalist society.
Yep.
Just remember that. And honestly, like, I don't really talk about it, and I don't know if you really touched upon this at all either, but America being a capitalist society, I feel like was a huge reason, intentional or non-intentional, for this.
Yeah.
The orphan train.
Yeah.
But anyway, opponents' charges ranged from traditional states' rights arguments against increases in the power of the federal government. So that's kind of like what the Supreme Court was saying before. And to accusations that the amendment was a communist-inspired plot to subvert the Constitution. Oh my lord. Preventing child labor is a communist plot.
That's crazy. Almost as crazy as child labor helps slavery. Almost as crazy.
But hey, like I told you before, there were those slave owners that were like, nah, man, we hate this too. Because, it's taken away from us. I can't.
Can't.
I kid you not. Like I said, this was like the child labor stuff was the last stuff I found. Oh my god, I was like fuming. Okay, so that was all with it. We still have the train going, okay? We still have it going. So, like we said, remember, in the 1920s, the number of the orphan trains, they decreased due to a lot of these changes that we've talked about, these attempts for laws and bills, and then some of the ones that did get passed. So the volume significantly decreased as more and more states passed laws restricting interstate placement, creating state-run child welfare. And in 1918 and 1920, it was still going, but it was fading. So I feel like there were a lot of stops in Texas. Like, I have a specific one written here in White Ring, Texas, and like the final stop, I believe, was in. Hold up. Did I delete it?
Oh no.
Oh well.
Oh no, my voice
I didn't.
is going.
I just crossed through it. Okay. Springs, Texas. Sulphur Springs, Texas. So yeah, like it seemed like there were a lot of stops, especially in the South. Texas I saw popping up a lot for towards the end here. God, that's like crazy. New York to Texas? That's fucking insane.
Yeah.
So, the death of the train. Woo! Okay, so like we said, gradual end due to new laws. There's also like the change in social views. Because, you know, like we saw, there were people who were trying to get the child labor stuff going, or child labor, oh my god, prevention of child labor going, and other things of that nature. But you also have the Great Depression, which really hit hard in the United States. And then you also have the rise of like what becomes modern foster care later on.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that like just plays into it. So it wasn't like one specific thing over another. It was multiple things. So, the concept that children living in a family setting were better off than in larger institutions, which is why, again, like I mentioned it before, the larger orphanages, they were also cutting down. And then state and local government, like state versus local, or oh my god, state versus federal was like a big thing. But as a state and local governments became more involved in supporting families, the orphan train was no longer needed. Once the, you know, state started stepping up.
Yeah.
It's also said that the orphan trains movements came to an end when the two largest organizations that Sero mentioned earlier, the Children's Aid Society and the New York Foundling Hospital, stopped placing children out by train. So they also stopped.
Yep.
And when they stopped, the whole thing kind of just stopped. So the New York Foundling Hospital, there we go. I couldn't read the acronym for a second. The New York Foundling Hospital ended their placement in 1927 as they shifted into state foster care. And the Children's Aid Society ended in 1929 and redirected their energy toward improving existing childcare services within New York. So, again, that big shift to foster care. Then you also have the legal restrictions. States were banning moving children across borders. So that was going on. And then like the shift for foster care, it was focusing more on relocation, more within the community, like their own communities, not like off out into the corn kind of thing, you know?
The corn.
The corn. And then there's the moral obligations. Moral objections. Jesus. Criticism grew, likening the system to indirect servitude or slavery. So, you know, that also, you know, child slavery. In 1929, the last orphan train ran, like we said, in what I think is Texas, making the official end of the movement due to changing laws and societal views. So, it's kind of like you get like laws moved from simply moving children, like on the train, to ensuring their safety and well-being within formal systems, which is great. So it goes from placement to protection. and the death of the orphan trains marked the end of a large-scale social experiment such as that, while born with good intentions, couldn't adapt to evolving ideas about child welfare, paving the way for more structured and less. Oh my god. Oh my, I can't even read.
What are you trying?
Okay, so couldn't adapt to evolving ideas in child welfare, paving the way for more like structure. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm just like tired. I did not get a lot of sleep yesterday.
It's all right. You're making your way. It's fine.
I have both like coffee and water, so like, you know, but it's been like this all day. If you think this is just it's been like this all day. I'm so sorry, but I've been really excited to talk about this. Okay, I was very passionate about some of this stuff. Okay, so the legacy of this, because again, like, obviously there were like good intentions,
Mm-hmm.
but not everything good came out of it.
Yes.
So there's like mixed. Yeah, there's like mixed results because some children did find loving homes, but many children experienced. Oh my god, I don't. Bro, I'm crying. What the fuck? Many children experience cruelty, exploitation, and deep emotional wounds. Without the trains, most of the placed out orphans would have remained in the slums, never improving their conditions. However, we cannot overlook the flaws and horrors it brought as well. Many did go on to lead happy lives, and others unfortunately suffered from cruel treatment. The lasting impact, again, like I said before, around 250,000 children rode the train, and actually today many descendants are searching for their like fragmented histories. So basically they're trying to find out more about where their ancestors came from, because I know that many kids being affected by the trains. Yeah, there's definitely probably a lot of descendants from that time. Kind of like what Sarah was talking about earlier of the possibility.
Yes.
So.
Oh, did you hear that?
Mm-mm.
My dog just barked in his sleep.
That's cute. All
right, go on.
That. I didn't hear it, but that's cute. So, memorialization. There are many organizations like the National Orphan Train Complex, which I'm going to be getting more into here shortly. But the National Orphan Train Complex preserving stories of these writers. So near the end of the 1900s, adult children of the orphan trains did begin to have like reunions and reconnect. Some, like, especially those who kind of got separated from their families previously, were able to reconnect, while others unfortunately never saw their actual families again. But some people who were like on the first like batch and were at the older end of it, later years, did actually come together, share their stories and everything. So one such guy, we got Arthur, okay? 82 years old when he talked about this, about his story. He said that in January 1918, he was a month-old boy who was found in a basket near this department store called Gimbel's in Manhattan. 5 years later, after bouncing from one orphanage to another, he boarded a train for Iowa. The train arrived in a small Iowa farm community called... Okay, Sero.
Here, I'm
called...
going to your doc. Where are we?
Okay, I don't know how to pronounce this.
Clorinda.
Iowa City.
Clorinda.
Clorinda. Okay.
Let me see where that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard of it. So it's a large group of curious farming families.
Oh, it's West Iowa. Oh, that's why I don't know.
Okay.
All my family is from East Iowa, so I don't know anything about Clorinda.
Okay. Clorinda.
Clorinda.
So there were a lot of, like, farm families that were waiting at the station to see the children. According to the local Clorinda paper, a little 5-year-old boy climbed into a farmer's lap and asked, "Are you gonna be my daddy?"
That's so sad. That's devastating.
Arthur, was that you, Arthur? No, wait. Yeah, 5 years. Yeah. Oh my god, I think that was Arthur. The man and his wife, Worley and Lillian Smith, looked at each other. They had only come to the station out of curiosity, but they slowly smiled at each other and they took him. Arthur, he just wanted a family. Oh my god. I'm sorry. It's like, are you gonna be my parents? Are you gonna be my... God. Damn. So that was obviously a happier story. Not all of them were like that. But yeah, like, as the kids got older, more and more people did come out about their stories. And then remembering that it was 1926 or 1927. Wait. What year did it end? 1929. Jesus
1920,
Christ.
yeah, 1929.
Remembering it was 19. I was like, fuck. I have so many years in this doc. I don't know if you see, but I have like everything bolded year-wise. As again, 1929 was when the last train ended. A few years later, in 1935, we get the Social Security Act. Which, for those who don't know, it's like the first federal funding for child welfare services. It helps with eventual transition from like the orphan train to foster care. The enactment of the Social Security Act includes limited funds for child welfare services, including limited funds for child welfare placement of children based on race, color, or national origin, and to facilitate the identification and recruitment of foster and adoptive parents. So the Social Security Act of 1935 was, even though it happened after the orphan train, it was definitely another like big act that helped like develop what was going on at the time. And I guess like you could say the legacy of the train, because like theoretical territory here, if you didn't have the train, the stuff that did come from it afterwards or because of it, like, would it necessarily have happened at that time? Probably later, more later, if it would have happened. I can't imagine our society now still doing this. Well, never mind foster care. Just a few years after we get the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, which fucking blows my mind. Do you remember how we were talking about the child labor laws?
Yeah.
How all those bills just kept getting denied.
Rejected.
Rejected. That last one that got rejected by the Supreme Court was 1919. We are in... Crap, I scrolled down too far. My bad. We are in 1938 right now. I don't know how many years that is. It's quite a few years, though. 1919 to 1938. That's a gap.
Yeah.
So, in 1938, we finally get the Fair Labor Standards Act, which establishes that basically for child labor, that provisions are designed to protect and like the educational opportunities of minors and prohibit their employment in jobs and under conditions detrimental to their health or well-being. So like we got introduced to minimum wage, overtime pay, record keeping, and youth employment standards, and the affecting employees in private sector and federal, state, and local governments. So all the governments, basically, within the US. At the time, which this is crazy. At the time, minimum wage of nothing less than $7.25 per hour, which was in January 24, 2009, which,
Yeah.
like, I had to throw that in there because that just blows my mind that that wasn't that long ago. But, and then, like, it also has, like, overtime pay and, like, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this was, like, the first, actual, protection for children in the workforce. So, that was 1938. In 1941, the Supreme Court reversed its earlier opinions, recognizing Congress's power to regulate child labor as stipulated in the 1938 Fair Labor Standards Act. Because remember, every time Congress was like, hey, let's protect these children, the Supreme Court just
Crazy idea.
So, that took, what, 1938 to 1941 for that to, like, finally be a thing. Oh my goodness gracious. We love America, don't we?
Gotta love it.
Oh, gotta love it. And then, we're gonna get, like, into the National Orphan Train Complex, like I said, but there's still a little bit more I want to, like, go over, because I also found this, towards the end of my research, and I was like, no, I gotta include this because this is bullshit! Okay? So, the National Bureau of Economic Research, did a piece. They researched the geographic and household effects from the orphan train, motivated by the idea that geography and environmental change could transform lives. So basically, moving the kids from one place to another, like, with the motivation that, like, it will transform their lives, okay?
Yeah.
So the researchers studied what happened to the children who were sent Midwest, and South on the orphan trains and compared them to similar children who stayed in the New York institutes. Because like, not all children went on the trains. They wanted to see if moving west helped kids do better in life, and whether they were sent or who they lived with mattered. Because I feel like these were big things that they were trying to do with the orphan train, right? So they tracked tens of thousands of these children using census records up through 1940. They found that simply being sent west did not make people more successful as adults. Even being sent to richer or poorer areas didn't really change how well they did later in life. What did matter was the family itself. Children who grew up in a higher income home tended to earn more money as adults, but about 20% of the family's income level showed up in the children's income later on.
Mm.
So, honestly, it didn't do much. Which just really rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
It didn't do much. The data shows it didn't do much.
It all
At
rubs me
least
the
from
wrong
this
way, man.
viewpoint. Yeah, the data rubs me the wrong way. But okay. So, moving on with the legacy, more into the legacy aspect of things. In 1995, the American Experience produced a documentary on the orphan trains. And the transcripts of the interviews, because they did interviews with the orphans, are very heartbreaking. I did not watch. I don't know if I can bring myself to watch that documentary. I watched other things, but I watched it from like an educational standpoint. Like I listened to there was one like almost 2-hour lecture that I listened to by a university professor
I
who
watched that
worked in
too.
social work and stuff. Oh, twinning! Yeah, I couldn't. I don't think I can listen to these. I don't remember what other documentary I listened to, but they were kind of touching on some of the stories, and just listening to those freaking about killed me. Okay, can't. So yeah, that was the first like documentary of the orphan trains. Then so we
Hi,
have
Dexter.
for like preserving what happened during that time and with the train and everything with it and the children and their stories, preserving all of that, we have 3 big major players. So we have, again, the New York Foundling Hospital, which holds many records, which often included birth family names of the children originating in New York. And these records can be accessed at the New York. I'm so sorry, that was a yawn.
It's okay.
And these names for the children originating in New York, these records can be accessed at the New York Historical Society, which offers an online finding aid guide to the records of the New York Foundling Hospital, 1869 to 2009. So, yes, the New York Foundling Hospital does hold a lot of records. Obviously, not all the records could be saved, but you know, they hold some records. The Children's Aid Society also holds records, which in some cases list birth family names for children departing from New York. That's just some cases. These records can be found at the New York Historical Society as well, which has produced, again, the online funding aid but this one's for Guide to the Victor Reamer Historical Archives of the Children's Aid Society, 1836 to 2006. And now we have the National Orphan Trade Complex. See, this is the thing that I was considering pictures for.
Yeah.
But it's like it's whatever, man. I didn't.
It's all right. We don't need pictures.
But you can check it out. You can check it out because they definitely are like, for current day preservation, they are the like
place to look
for this. Yeah. The museum, so it's a museum and research center dedicated, because it's nonprofit, to the preservation of the stories and artifacts of those who were part of the orphan train movement. The mission of the National Orphan Train Complex is to collect, preserve, interpret, and disseminate knowledge about the orphan trains and the children and agents who rode them. While there is no comprehensive list of orphan train riders, they do. This is current to what they have most currently updated their website of. Approximately 8,000 orphan train riders are in their database. And I did kind of look into it, and you can kind of see as the number grows, because I want to say one of the earlier things I saw on their page, it was like 5,000, and then more current day, it's like 8,000. So it's really cool to see that they like are like very dedicated to this. And yes, they do have a research page with their database. This is in oh god, what's that place in Kentucky? Or wait, not Kentucky. Damn it, Kansas. What's that place in Kansas?
the K state.
Yeah, that K. Oh god, I'm totally gonna fuck this up. I'm pretty sure you like might have mentioned this place earlier too.
Probably.
Let
me hear.
I don't know how to say
Concordia.
Concordia. Okay. I couldn't remember if you mentioned it or not.
I don't think I did.
But it's
I said Connecticut.
Kansas.
I said Connecticut.
Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking. You know, there's a lot of C's and K sounds, guys. Concordia, Kansas. That is where this is located. So the city or town that this is located in has 52 statues of orphan train riders themselves.
Wow.
All scattered throughout the town.
That's crazy.
And they have a free Yeah, that was the statues were the pictures I was gonna say.
Oh, okay.
But you can like easily look it up. But yeah, they have a free scavenger hunt that you can fill out, that you can download off their website for free and fill out to do the scavenger hunt in town. And I think that's like really cool. I want
to do that.
I know, I do too, dude. They have other stuff too that I'll get into, but yeah, I love that. So a little bit about them. They organized in 2000, calling themselves they had a lot of name changes, calling themselves the Railroad Depot Orphan Train Museum Committee, and operated under the Cloud County Community College. Then in 2001, this lady, Beth that's her middle name. Beth Whistler, there we go, donated the 1917 Union Pacific Depot, whatever, to the college for use by the committee. And this is when things kind of really took off. The group renamed themselves to the Orphan Train Depot Project and set out to build their museum. In 2002, they started looking for a home for all their archives, and the Orphan Train Depot project began, campaigning for the archives to be moved to where they are now located in Kansas, in that town that we mentioned earlier.
Lila already forgot how to pronounce it.
Yup. In March 2003, it was announced that their location had been chosen. And in May, what the fuck? Sorry. That was a really weird noise. I don't know what it was. I don't know what that was. Anyway, the depot was added to the... Okay, so they were added to the National Register for Historic Places. And they renamed to the National Orphan Train Complex. So yes, they are part of the National, Registry for Historical Places. They are official. And before the museum could officially open, they acquired an antique passenger car. This is the other thing I was going to get pictures for. This is actually really cool. So they required an antique passenger car from one of the trains. And for many years, they worked to fundraise and restore the train car. Finally, in 2015, it was complete, and in 2018, the Jones Education Station opened. The legend, the train, what they called it, serves as an interactive exhibit, providing visitors with an opportunity to imagine what it was like for these children to travel thousands of miles in search of a new home. So yes, you can actually go into it, and inside of the train cars, there's they just have a bunch of pictures of that time on the train, and information about what life was like and everything like that during that time and on the trains. Inside of it did look pretty cool. The pictures I saw were of what somebody visiting the train posted on a blog.
Mm-hmm.
But it did look really cool. I would definitely like to check it out. Don't think I'm ever gonna be in that town, but ever in the area. So, also another fun fact for them is that in 2015, the city approached the museum with a proposal to rebrand Concordia as the Orphan Train Town, which is why they ended up adding the statues all around town. I think Orphan Train Town, it's a lot easier to say than Concordia, Kansas. So, But yeah, there are so many people looking for lost relatives and family history to this day. And you can actually, because again, they're nonprofits, so they don't receive any funding from the federal, state, or local taxes. So they do have a donation thing set up. They also operate completely off of admission fees for the museums, grants, and donations. They do have a gift shop. That's what I was going to look at. I was going to look at the gift shop. I forgot. They do have a gift shop. And you can actually... Okay, dude, this was cool. You can request a presentation.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You do have to pay for it. depending on the kind of presentation, depends on the price. So you can request a pre-recorded presentation. They'll send it to you. You could request a virtual live presentation, and you can request an in-person presentation. You can request an out-of-state presentation where they travel to your state, to where you are, for a presentation. Obviously, that's going to be a bit more expensive.
Yeah.
But they have a boarding fee included, and then a non-boarding fee included. So if like you're paying these people to come out here, if you provide them with boarding, then obviously it's going to be a little bit more different in price compared to if you are not and they have to provide for their own boarding.
Yeah.
But yeah, they will go out of state for this. These guys are dedicated, okay?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. They were not the only source that I used for my info. I did use a lot of actual, like, government websites.
Yeah.
But I did use them quite a bit for a lot of the information that I found. So I like what they're doing. I think it's important what they're doing because this is definitely a part of history that doesn't get talked about as much. It has definitely become more popular within more modern times.
Yeah.
But for a while there, like, no one really.
I mean, it's the same thing with Radium Girls, man. Like, there's so much history that we don't talk about enough.
Yeah.
That's, like, super important.
So, I'm gonna be, like, a teacher right now. It was funny because I did see, like, on a teaching website for teachers to do, like, with kids, learning about this topic. I got this from there.
Okay.
Let's pause and think. In what way were these kids affected by the orphan trade?
Think about it.
Think about it. Pause and think. Because I can tell you right now, there's some traumatized kids that came out of that.
Oh, yeah. Some so traumatized that they eventually become murderers.
Yep. Or there were a lot of people. There were a lot of runaways, for sure. That was, like, huge.
So many runaways. Huge. So
especially
many.
for boys.
Yeah. A lot of young men ran away.
Now, I didn't go out of my way to find this story because just listening to it the first time freaking broke me. So I do not remember the little girl's name, but there was a story that I listened to where it talked about, it was one of the more famous cases.
I think that's the one I mentioned earlier. About the one that I didn't want to. Yeah, the one I was like, I'm not going to tell you because it's so heartbreaking.
Okay, yeah. I'm not going to, like, go into it, but basically, like, she was severely abused and got moved to a different home. This little girl, let's protect her, please. Now, I can't remember if she was abused there too, or if it was a better home. But there were definitely kids who did get abused, like, they were in one house, got abused, did get moved to a different house, because they, like, some of the, what are they called?
Placements?
The adults.
Oh, the agents? Like...
Yeah, the agent. Oh my god, I couldn't think of agents.
Social workers.
Some of the agents, yeah, basically. They did, like, some of them really did try to stay on top of things for the kids. Obviously, like Sero said before, as it got bigger and bigger, it got harder. And then, of course, there were just some that didn't really care as much. But, and again, like, kids slipped through the system like they do now, which is fucking horrible. But anyway, there were kids who did get moved from one home because of abuse, only to be put into another home where there was more abuse. And it really, really fucking sucked. There's definitely more regulations for like foster homes and stuff now.
Yeah.
You know, somehow it's still fucking.
There's
yeah.
horror stories still all the time.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So that is like the legacy of the train. Now, I do have a little bit like of kind of things that go with it. So for example, obviously because of this was kind of like the birth of like foster care and adoption.
Mhm.
So the rise of foster care, all the laws and stuff that came out of this during the downfall of the orphan train and after the orphan train, these laws really did help transition away from large institutes, so large orphanages, and towards, again, foster homes and family-based care with government funding. This did not happen until the 1960s. Which wasn't that long ago.
No.
This didn't happen until the 1960s. You know what this really made me reflect on?
Mm.
When they say America's young, like, as a country, this just really shows you how young America is.
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. So, okay. Remember the child welfare of 1912, the
Yep.
U.S. Children's Bureau, 1912?
Mm.
So, the federal oversight, so the establishment of the U.S. Children's Bureau of 1912, and acts that later came into fruition, like the Adoption Assistance and Child Welfare Act of 1980, and the Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997.
That was when I was born.
That has all gone in to create the national standards and support for state child welfare efforts. So, the reason why I went into child welfare so much earlier in the 1912 is because, again, that was like the big thing that just like totally shifted us into getting out of what it was and what we have today. Combined with these newer acts that definitely make things a bit better. So, the Adoption Assistance and Child Welfare Act of 1980, what that is, it created assistance for adoption and foster care, really emphasizing family preservation. Again, like that's a big thing because what you see a lot, or what in more modern days, what we see a lot within the United States foster care system, in like child welfare, is that there's a lot of poor families. So it's not necessarily like abuse; it's just necessarily not being able to provide for your children.
Yeah.
So taking the child temporarily out of that situation, but keeping them within like family means and trying to help parents get to a point where they can take their children back, that is what the like main goal is. So this created assistance for adoption and foster care, emphasizing family preservation. Oh, I was thinking of the other one. So yes, what I said before is true. But so this act created assistance for adoption and foster care because when you're doing adoption and foster care, like if you're fostering, obviously, like this is basically helping those people get like more funds because it is better to keep children in a more family environment than like not.
Yeah.
And again, work to reunification. Now, the Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997, this is where it requires like permanency hearings and mandated seeking of like parent rights, and if children were in care for 15 of the previous 22 months, aiming for faster permanency. So this is like, God, I didn't realize it was that long. So required permanency hearings every 12 months.
Yeah. So once a year.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that is a year.
Yeah. Once a year.
Lord Jesus.
Very similar to the CAS, because they had once a year.
Yeah.
After the first like 2 years or something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, all that combined is what we have today. I have a whole timeline of other child welfare laws that came into play, but which I can kind of go through. But well, you know what? Let's just do it. Because you want to know when the last like law that the so I got this directly off the child welfare government website.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. The latest law was in 2011. So there is still actively things being passed.
Oh yeah. There's going to be continuously, I believe, as things get fought for.
So oh yeah. Cuz the system is still pretty broken today, which is what I have at the very end of this doc. But so a lot of the laws I actually went through already throughout the timeline of the orphan train, but picking up from 1930, was it 38? Somewhere there, 38, the Fair Labor Standards Act, and 1935, the Social Security Act. So picking up from there, we have the 1958 amendments to Title V require states to match federal child welfare funds if they choose to draw down funding. I'm going to tell you right now, I did not read through all these, by the way.
No, that's fine.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So this one's basically, requires states to match federal child welfare funds. Okay, pretty straightforward, right? Then we have the 1961 Title 4A. Sorry, I'm trying to remember my Roman numerals. Yeah, wait, no.
Time out. Let me see.
Yeah. It's before that makes it less. Yeah,
4A.
4A. Okay, that's what I thought. Guys, it's been a long time. Okay, so 1961, Title 4A, the Aid to Families with Dependent Children entitlement is amended to allow use of funds for foster care expenses if the child comes from an AFDC, which is Aid to Families with Dependent Children, eligible family, and a court determines if the child's best interest to be removed or not, basically. So state participation in this was made mandatory in 1969. So, yeah, that really just shows you how long it takes something to really become, like, in effect. Because this started in 1961, and then slowly became mandatory in 1969. 19 mixing numbers. 1967, don't. Child welfare funding under Title 5 becomes Title 4B, Child Welfare Services. Woo! 1974, Child Abuse and Treatment Act is enacted. It is the only federal legislation exclusively dedicated to prevention, assessment, identification, and treatment of child abuse and neglect. In 1978, we have the Indian Child Welfare Act, which established requirements for children welfare agencies when serving Native American children and families. Because, guys, holy shit, Native American children really got the shit end of the stick.
Yeah, I saw there were some pictures when I was looking into like the 1850s and like before that, like during the whole like Industrial Revolution stuff. A lot of the orphanages were already over capacity because a lot of Native American children were having to go to orphanages because of their families dying from epidemics and also from people just taking them from their families.
Yeah, just straight up taking, like, oh my god.
And then they would all cut their hair and put them in those stupid outfits.
Yeah, like, don't even get me started on the fucking, like, schools that they made them go to that did all that crap.
That were often run by nuns. How?
Yeah, I don't remember what they're called, but it was basically schools.
It was like assimilation schools or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of Native American children in those orphanages with the homeless kids from New York. A lot.
Yeah. In 1981, Congress ultimately rejects Senate legislation to create a child welfare block grant that eliminates the Title 4E entitlement. Wait. What? Okay, wait a second. The Title 4E was the foster care and adoption assistance entitlement program for the... Wait, did I just skip? I did skip. Okay, my bad. Hold up. I didn't even read this one. Okay. In 1980, enactment of the Adoption Assistance and Child Welfare Amendment of 1980 established a new Title 4E, Foster Care and Adoption Assistance Entitlement Program. So, an assistance program. In 1981, the following year, Congress rejected the Senate legislation to create a child welfare block grant that eliminates Title 4E. So the Senate tried to create a welfare block? What? Okay. 1985, Title 4E is amended to include new independent living programs to assist youth that age out of the foster care system. Wow, look at how long it took for kids aging out to get help. Because kids even aging out of, like, the orphan trains programs and stuff, you know? Like, what the fuck happened to them? So this is when the something to help them finally comes out. 1993, Title 4B is amended to create a new family preservation and family support program. 1994, there's a couple things going on here. Legislation to enact that directs the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to create a new review of state child welfare systems. About time. This directive ultimately creates the Child and Family Service Reviews. This legislation also authorizes child welfare waivers demonstrations. Also in 1994, the Multi-Ethnic Placement Act is enacted to prevent discrimination in the services. So, yeah, I did do research on the orphan train with colored children, which was interesting. I was going to kind of talk about it more later, but this kind of just reminded me of that. Yeah, discrimination. In 1995, Congress ultimately rejects House-approved legislation to eliminate. Why is everybody trying to eliminate Title 4E?
I don't know, man.
We'll have to look into this later. What's going on here? Okay, so 1995, Congress rejects the House-approved legislation to eliminate, again, Title E. Title 4E, the foster care and adoption assistance entitlements, and combine over 20 children's programs into a chapped child welfare block grant. Definitely gonna have to look into that more later because what the heck? In 1996, temporary assistance for needy families was created, a block grant that was created, thus eliminating the AFDC. Eliminating, crap, what acronym did that stand for? That was up here earlier. AFDC.
Aid to families with
it's up here.
dependent children.
Okay, so it deleted that. Okay. Got rid of that. While
Temporary assistance for needy families.
Thank you. Replaces the AFDC, and laws require states to continue to base the Title 4E foster care and adoption assistance eligibility on the AFDC standards in place on July 16th, 1996. Well, that's just a lot. There's a lot here. I'm gonna go skip. Okay. Oh, we're almost done. 1996, also had the MEPA amended by the... That's a big word, Sero.
Hmm?
That's a big word. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Inter-ethnic adoption provisions.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that. To delete language specifically permitting the consideration of race in placement decisions.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. So that would mean
that was 1996.
So that would mean like they aren't going to place only one race with the same race. They can place outside of race is what it sounds like.
Good. Damn, that was in 1996, bro.
Yeah.
1997, we get the Adoption and Safe Families Act, which I talked about earlier. So that's one of the big ones for current day. Yeah, welfare and stuff. Then we got 1999. The Independent Living Program is expanded and renamed in honor of Senator John H.
What did this guy even do? Let me see.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, why did it get renamed to him? I've never heard of him. Sarah's gonna look that up for us.
He's a Republican member. He was the governor of Rhode Island, Secretary of the Navy, and was a United States senator. So he was in the Marines. Oh, he enlisted in the Marine Corps after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and he spent his 20th birthday fighting on the island of Guadalcanal from August 8th. Stop. No, go back. Yeah.
Was he in like foster care? Or
Yeah, I'm looking.
something?
I'm looking
Like,
to see.
why did it get renamed?
He helped create the Public Transportation Administration in Rhode Island. Secretary of the
Damn. Okay.
Navy. Let's see. He fostered the Clean Water Act of
Don't mind me.
1986, the Clean Air Act,
Okay.
the Oil Pollution Act of
It's very concerning
1990,
that
Coastal Barrier Resources Act. He's very environmentally friendly, it seems.
it's kind of concerning that this is all more recent.
Yeah, this is 1999. That was the acts that I'm trying to find. Oh, he voted in favor of the bill to establish Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a federal holiday and the Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987.
I think I like this senator.
He seems pretty chill. Oh, wait. Okay.
Yeah.
He took a moderate stance on taxes and government assistance to the needy. He opposed the death penalty, school prayer, and the ban on homosexuals serving in the military. Hey, we like this guy. We like this guy. Let's go.
Dude, can you imagine? Is this guy still alive?
No, he died in 1999.
Oh, that makes sense why they Okay, this guy's a Republican. Can you imagine what he would think of, like, not getting into politics too much, but
Yeah.
today? Damn.
I mean,
no, we like
we're
this
not.
guy.
We're not gonna into it. I'm not gonna say anything.
Uh-huh.
Okay, yeah. So he is known as the Foster Care Independence Program. The programs are administered. I want to see why though. There's also a social science center at the University of Rhode Island that's named in his honor.
Huh.
So he must have been
Maybe
he must have been passionate about it at some point because there's several things here. He got the Presidential Medal of Freedom in
Holy shit.
after his death in 2000.
Shit.
Yeah, and he got
We really like this guy.
He got 3 Navy Presidential Unit Citation Awards. He got a combat action. He has a lot of medals, guys. A lot of medals going on here. Yeah, he seems like okay, I take it back. I get it. I get why it was named after him. He seems like a decent guy.
Yeah, he seems like a decent human.
Okay, moving on. Continue, Lila. I just wanted to take a look at this guy.
2001, we got the Promoting Safe and Stable Families is reauthorized. The law also amends that John H. How did we say his last name?
Chafee?
The senator guy we just got.
Senator John H. Chafee?
Chaffee?
Chafee?
Chaffee? The guy we just talked about.
John. Just call him John.
So, John. Yes, John. So in 2001, Promoting Safe and Stable Families is reauthorized. The law also amends the John Independent Living Program to providing funding for education and training vouchers for foster youth and creating new funding for mentoring of children of incarcerated parents. They're trying to do a lot of good things in his name. 2003, we have the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issues a ruling in Rosalie versus Thompson 321. That would make many more children eligible for Title 4E federal foster care assistance. Damn, this Title 4E, I'm definitely gonna have to look into it because, like, it's come up a lot. The court rules that HHS has misinterpreted the Title 4E on Social Security Act in denying federal foster care benefits to certain children who have been maltreated and placed with relatives outside their homes. Damn? Really? Somebody really misinterpreted the Title IV of the Social Security and denying federal foster care benefits to certain children.
Hmm.
Okay. 2005, Congress passes the president signs the Deficit Reduction Act, which overturns the ruling from the previous ruling that we just talked about, this Rosalie's ruling.
Dude, legislation
Okay.
changes like just so quickly, like all the time. It's crazy.
The same legislation creates 2 additional 10 million funds for court improvement efforts. In 2008, Fostering Connections to Success and Increasing Adoptions Act. That is a really long act. Holy shit. Let me say that again. Fostering Connections to Success and Increasing Adoptions Act is enacted in 2008. It amends Part B and E. Oh, there's that of the Title IV of Social Security Act to connect and support relative caregivers, improve outcomes for children and youth in foster care, especially in healthcare and education, provide for tribal foster care, improves incentives for adoption, and enhances training access for the child welfare force. Okay. That is a lot. So whatever Title 4 is, it got updated. 2010, we get the Affordable Care Act. Oh, hey.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago.
Nope. I remember when that happened.
Yeah, I remember this. Okay. So we get the Affordable Care Act. The legislation extends Medicare coverage to all youths who exit out of care as adults up to age 26. I did not realize that.
That's why,
In addition,
yeah.
in addition, the prohib oh my god.
Where are we
I
at?
can't say it. The
Prohibition.
How many times have I said that word today?
Quite a bit.
In addition, the prohibition of the pre-existing conditions, exclusions, and expansions of Medicare and child health insurance program will benefit many families, including those at risk for involvement in the system. This legislation also included federal support for home visiting programs, which is a proven effective child abuse prevention strategy. Is it? No comment. In 2010, the Child Abuse and Protection in 2010? Okay, I'm sorry. In 2010, the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act is reauthorized. Programmatic updates included programmatic updates included provisions to improve data collection, improve systems training for supporting individuals who identify, prevent, and respond to reports of child maltreatment, and strengthen coordination among service providers working to address challenges associated with maltreatment. Funding authorization is maintained at $120 million. Holy shit, I did not know that. For discretionary grants and basic state grants, and $80 million for community-based prevention grants. Holy shit. That wasn't that long ago. And finally, the most updated, in 2011. Damn, there hasn't been a law since 2011. the Child and Family Services Improvement and Innovation Act is passed to reauthorize 4B of the Social Security Act. So 2008 was when that changed. 2011, we're changing it. Programmatic updates, again. Updates address health and development provisions of the state plan, caseworker visits, and the court improvement program, and data standardizing, among others. Some education and older youth provisions of the Title 4E there it is again, are also updated, in addition to the reinstatement of waiver authority for HHS approved demonstration projects to flexibility use of the Title 4E funds. I'm gonna have to look up what the Title 4E is, because it did not talk about what Title 4E was in this at all, like it did with Title 5. I talked about Title 5 earlier, during the orphan train stuff. Anyway, that's the child welfare timeline. Talk about going back and forth with shit. Jesus Christ. God. And there hasn't been anything, like, updated since 2011.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's good or bad.
I
really
don't know. I don't know.
Like, there's obviously still, it's like a very broken, for those of you who are not, like, in the US, I'm sure you've probably heard of stuff, but, like, it is a very broken system. But, yeah, Jesus. God. Okay. Well,
that was the timeline.
Yeah. Jeez. I know I said that I kind of looked into a little bit more about the, like, race side of things with the orphan train.
Yeah.
I didn't finish. That was, like, a long video, too. I didn't finish that video. But it definitely was talking about how colored children, like, basically weren't, like, really picked like the white children were.
Yeah.
Children of color did ride the orphan train, though less often than children who looked white. So it's definitely, like, it was originally created for Anglo-Saxon, like, white European immigrant children.
Irish, German, Italian.
Yeah, like Sero talked about, like, really early on. Because that's what most of the children were. White with Western European backgrounds. The agencies, like, felt that white European children be easier to place in loving homes. So, yeah. Which, honestly, that definitely, during that time, that was definitely...
Unfortunately, that was true.
Yeah. Children of color couldn't go to regular public schools and were often, like, left neglected. They were also running around on the streets and stuff, too. And in orphanages, they were often overlooked and actually denied aid. Often, they were used by, like, older men as, like, beggars or chimney sleepers. But eventually, there were, like, color-only orphanages and asylums. I don't believe they had... Like I said, I didn't get to finish listening to it. And this documentary, this, like, is actually on the National Orphan Train Complex website that place in Kansas we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
This is
Concordia.
like one of the things that's actually, they go into more about like
And that
how
website is
colored
linked
children.
in the Discord server. So
Oh, cool, sweet.
yeah, because that's where I found the Orphan Train Rider stories. Is that website? So
oh, cool. Yeah, so they definitely go more into it, but race was a big problem then. It is definitely still a problem now. Black, Native Americans, and Latino children being significantly overrepresented compared to their share of the general population, often due to poverty, being mistaken for neglect, systematic bias in investigations, and economic barriers facing families of color, leading to longer stays, like in the foster system and stuff, and less reunification, which is what the whole purpose of it is supposed to be, and the worst outcomes for kids of color. And that is in today's foster system in the United States. There is deep-seated societal racism impacting housing, jobs, education, creating hardships that push families into crises, and under the purview of the children welfare. Institutional racism can manifest in how child welfare systems operate, affecting kin placement and resource allocation. So it is very bad right now, especially with all the shit that's going on right now. But again, this is not a political. Even though I don't know if I'd consider that political. Anyway, Sero briefly talked about religion earlier, right? Like the Catholics and the Protestants and the homes and the stuff. So I actually was curious about that. So I did some digging because I wanted to see if faith was still an issue and some of these foster communities and adoption communities and stuff in the US. I wanted to see if that had anything to do with it. And after I did that, I was like, Lila, you are stupid. That makes sense. So, definitely still faith-based issues. So, faith-based communities often are crucial support networks for foster parents, making their service more sustainable. Okay? You gotta think about it. There are, like, basically a lot of people who are more willing to open their home up to take care of a child that is not theirs.
Or in a faith-based community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of Christians, lots of other faiths too, Catholics, all of that, okay? Lots of faiths. But creating this creates some issues because it conflicts with particularly LGBTQ plus youth and anti-discrimination laws.
Yeah.
And
there are a lot of homeless queer people, a lot of homeless queer children.
Yup. Definitely. That's why I felt stupid, because I was like, that makes sense. It's like, shit. I felt stupid. But, and then there's also conflicting religion / forced religious views. So kids who might have come from a family that believed one faith, and even though they're in like a foster system or say have been adopted by another family, are being forced to practice another faith. And they might have just not had a faith religion at all, and they're like, these foster parents or adopted parents are just like, shoving it down their throat kind of thing. Yeah. So that is also another thing. But yeah, the LGBTQ plus youth, that is a huge, like, conflicting, like, a huge problem within the system as well. Our system is still very broken, even if it has, like, come a long way. So there was also something else. Did you talk about, like, siblings being separated? You did, right?
Yeah, because I talked in the Kansas Charlie story. You saw his
Yeah, the Charlie story. Yeah, okay, that's a
him
good,
and his brothers
yeah.
and sister got separated a bunch of times.
Yeah. I do remember hearing a story where this one boy got separated from his siblings and he never saw them again, which was really sad.
Yeah, that was my
'cause he got,
grandpa.
like, sent south.
My grandpa, my great grandpa, when they separated him and his brothers, and he lived with.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever saw them ever again. I just know that they
saw them again. Yeah.
I just know they existed because I
heartbreaking.
found like a document about all of the children, but my grandpa said that he didn't really ever get to see them ever because they were completely different families, so
That's so sad.
yeah.
Well, that's still an issue today, which the fact that it's an issue today is so fucked up. Like, that is bull fucking shit.
I will say they do put a lot more effort into trying to keep siblings together, but
they do.
Still not as much as we could put.
I did actually recently just see, like, well, technically it was a TikTok, but I saw it on YouTube Shorts because I'm lame. But I saw a short of this, like, teenage sibling being reunited with his two younger siblings because they were separated in the system. Now, the two younger siblings stayed together, but he was separated from them. Like, he went elsewhere. And, dude, I wanted to cry. Oh my god. When they saw him, oh my fucking god. I was so heartbroken. I was like, no! Keep these babies together. Jesus. So yeah, they are, like Sero said, it is a lot better than what it was, and they do put more of an effort to it, but the fact that, like, it still happens. Oh, I totally just skipped over stuff. Oh, then and now. So babies then were more desirable than older children for, like, couples to be able to raise children as their own. For, like, certain families, but that is definitely, like, a big thing now too, because there are a lot of older children in the system who get overlooked because, yeah, like, people want to adopt babies.
Yeah.
Which, like,
there's also like a stigma behind, like, older kids who have already been in the system so long having behavioral issues and not
that they're, like, beyond
like they're beyond any help and, like, they're gonna be monsters and they don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's true that they because they've gone through all of this, they are gonna have more issues. That's just like, that's just true. A lot of them will. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't deserving of your help and kindness. And it's not like the social work system does offer, like, therapy to these kids. Like, there's definitely ways that you can help them with that, and still, I mean, I do understand, because there are scary stories of children that have been in the foster care system all this time, have behavioral issues, and, like, are kind of violent. Like, there are those stories, but that's like the rarity. But those stories scare off a lot of foster parents from wanting older children.
I could say something really bad right now.
I don't know if I... Okay, I was like, I don't know if I want to know. What is it? Lila's telling me secrets, guys. I mean, yeah, no,
Look
that's
at what just happened.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
look at
that's
what
true.
just happened.
I mean, yeah, that's true too.
So
Any kid
yeah,
with mental health
but-
issues is going to have that opportunity to not get helped and then not end up in a good headspace.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's definitely a stigma between older foster kids and the babies. For sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. I put this under then and now. I kind of have things separated by back then, today, and then yeah, some of it kind of see in both areas, but not enough like social workers and like I feel like funds for social workers, because I definitely like with the train situation, definitely would have been better if there were more adults there.
Yeah.
Than just like 2 or 3 for like all of those kids. And I definitely know like even now with like personal life that God, they're social workers, like they definitely like, you know, there's a lot of professions that are like underpaid right now that definitely deserve more. But there's also like social workers will have so many cases, so yeah, things still slip through the system. Uh, um, it's as of like for modern use, it's underfunding and a systematic failure, insignificant funding, and a reactive approach mean children don't get consistent quality care, and many separations can like be avoided. So it's hard. There's a lot of issues like lack of support, trauma for these kids, and instability. So it's not a perfect system. It has definitely come a long way, and it is definitely better than what it was, but still going through it, you know? But yeah, that is, I guess you could say that is like the full legacy of the orphan train.
Yeah.
How it developed.
It goes until present day. The legacy still is now. Like
yeah.
It became
honestly,
the foster care system, so like it is still now.
Yeah. And like even the orphan train itself, like there's like a whole museum dedicated to the research and preservation of the children and everything from that time. So that is still actively like going on to this day as well. Which I highly suggest people check out that website.
Yeah, definitely. I like I said,
it is pretty cool.
I'm gonna link it in the description. I linked it in the Discord. It's a really cool website. It has writer stories. It has like the history behind all of that. It has all of the like museum stuff on there. There's a lot of information on there. And it also lets you know how you can figure out if an ancestor of yours was on the orphan train, which is very interesting too.
I will say, if you have
disappeared.
a VPN on, it will not let you on the website. Yeah.
You disappeared.
Oh no.
Lila's gone.
What the fuck is going on?
Is it me?
What's going on?
Whoa.
Hold on.
It might be me. No, it's not. You're back.
That is so weird, because I'm still connected to like internet and stuff. I don't know.
I don't know. That was weird. But you're back for the outro, so we're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, what I was saying was, if you have a VPN on, you cannot access the
Interesting. I wonder
website.
why.
I learned that the hard way. I learned that the hard way.
I wonder why, though. Like,
I had
what?
to shut my VPN off to look at it. Crunchyroll is the same damn thing.
Really? That sucks. That sucks.
Yeah. But, yeah. But it is a really cool website. Where is the gift shop? Ooh, gift shop. Wish you would have bought that item from our gift shop during your visit here. Good news. We can send it to you. Oh, you can buy stuff online. Holy
That's
shit, they have a
fun.
shit ton of books.
Oh, I'm sure.
And DVDs. And a CD.
Interesting. Interesting.
Oh, there's train engine earrings and bracelets and a Mystery Tour 2017
Hi, Matt.
Cloud Replica Co.
Ka-chow.
Oh. Hi, Matt. There's an elk plushie. Wait,
Aw.
why? Plushie?
Maybe that's a state
Elky
thing.
plushie. Oh, yeah, it says Elky plushie. Okay. And there's postcards. Oh, the... Okay. Yeah, interesting. Lots of books, though.
Yeah. I
And
hate...
we rode the
Sometimes
Orphan
I
train
hate
as
that
their bestseller.
we go into these and then I can't rate anyone that's doing anything, like, similar. There's nobody ever doing
Yeah.
anything like us, which is good, I guess,
yeah.
but... I guess it's great that we're
Mabel and
niche,
Elky.
but I cannot find anybody.
Yeah. Oh, Elky is an elephant. Yeah, that has to be like a...
What?
Yeah.
I thought you said it was a
Elky is an
moose.
elephant. Well, I thought it said elk, but it says Elky. There's a Y.
I see. Okay.
Oh, there's a PDF order form.
Cool.
Damn.
All right, guys, we'll check out the website.
Interesting.
Check out the website to look at all the stuff. I'm just gonna choose someone that we haven't rated in a while. I'm just gonna do Suno.
Fun with me. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so just let me know when you're ready and we'll raid into our outro.
Oh yeah, we gotta do the outro.
Yeah.
Whoops. Okay. And that brings us to the end.
You have to tell me you're ready. Wait, time out. All right, start over. Go.
And that brings us to the end of today's journey into the orphan train movement, one of the most sweeping child relocation efforts in American history.
It's a story filled with resilience and hope, but also loss, trauma, and unanswered questions. And its impact didn't end when the train stopped running.
These stories deserve to be remembered, not just as statistics, but as real lives shaped by a system that tried to solve a problem in a deeply imperfect way.
We encourage you to dig deeper, listen to orphan train riders' stories, and reflect on how child welfare has evolved and where it still needs to improve.
As always, we are the series of Geektasticevents.
Run it
I'm
back.
your host, Lila.
And I'm your other host, Sero. Thank you for watching and learning about this important topic with us today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.